Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of Mir Musk. I'm running it tonight, Dr. Chow. Lil Mir's here. He'll be popping in and out. He's dealing with something, but we got a very, very special guest for you. Some of you might know him, others might not. It's the infamous Mark Random, New York comedian scene. I guess at times comedian, philosopher, documentarian, rapper. He's a true Renaissance man, and I was the one who booked him on this show, so it's good that I'm running the interview to start because I know more about him. I'm a big fan. I've been a big fan of his ever since I saw him. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for...
Appreciate you coming on. So I just reached out to you, and you gracefully accepted our invitation to come on.
Yeah, I apologize. I had to do same day. It's a very weird thing with me. Usually people can schedule things months in advance, and I just kind of fell apart with that within the last few years.
No, it's all good, man. And yeah, so for people who don't know, Mark is in the New York comedy scene, and you first came onto my radar through your I guess you did something where you called out some female open micers, but
oh geez, that you really saw that?
Yeah. But then and that was probably what, 2017,
2018. It was
2018.
September 4th, 2018. I remember the exact date.
And you kind of became a persona non grata in this comedian scene because you were kind of saying things everyone was thinking before anyone else was saying it, if I can put it so lightly, you know?
Well, to add context, and I feel like I'm going to have to repeat this, people don't realize the political climate in 2018 was like now in the Biden era, it's kind of like the liberal thing and conservatives are on the back, but it's like there was like tense political climate. I don't know if people remember what like the 2016, 17, and 18 climate was with like the Brett Kavanaugh. So like, and the feminism thing. So men and women are really, it was like a really tense time. Now trans people just rolled right over feminism, but at that time, like a man versus a woman was like, you know,
it was huge. Yeah, it was right after when Trump got in and the pink hats and all that stuff was kind of popping off. Yeah. Amy Schumer was the biggest sensation.
And the Me Too movement had happened at the end of 2017 and rolled all the way into 2018. So it's like you're at a climate where everyone's either like protecting, lying for women or that, but like women are just like, it's just kind of all hate in that direction.
And it was a weird time.
Speak for all women, sorry.
It was a weird time for comedy too, because that was like right when that Nanette stuff was going down.
That too. Yeah, that's another.
And then some of the big quote unquote populist comedians like Louis C.K. was getting canceled. And then these like weird comedians that wasn't really comedy were kind of popping up and being propped up as if they were, it was like topsy-turvy.
I don't remember.
Maybe the Nanette thing. Like everyone's like, oh, Nanette's brave and great. And Louis C.K. is bad. And, you know, it was like a topsy-turvy time. So right around that time, you popped in on the scene as a provocateur comedian. You made a name for yourself quick.
Yeah, I don't like, in hindsight, I wish, well, the problem is it's like one of those things of it's like a cartoon of obviously, I didn't make that good of an impression in the video. I feel bad about it. But then what happened was I messaged a woman like, hey, we didn't handle that. Then she posts a comic named Mark Random physically assaults a woman. And when you hear the word, like, let's just say assault, she posted another thing saying Mark Random assaults. You think like, what do you think if you saw a post saying comic assaults audience member, what would you think that was?
I assume you'd probably like pushed her or spit on her or, you know, punched her or something, beat her up.
Something like physical. So I didn't want the video to get out, but people like, again, hundreds of comments and people writing blogs already. So I put the video out of like, I know I don't look the best in this, but I didn't fucking assault anyone, but it's this like woman hating man thing. And just, it was just weird because it's like, then that got this sort of everyone hating me, and then it just spiraled out of control. And I was really trying my best to kind of not even control the narrative, but just kind of say my point of view, and then they couldn't. And then I got on the Legion of Skanks, and then it kind of like turned into another thing. that I didn't want to. Like, I had an argument. I kind of didn't want to go on the Legion of Skanks. Like, I kind of knew who they were or whatever, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't know like what their audience range. And then it just propelled me into this area where I was seen, like you said, as a provocateur. And I'm aware of that now and I can accept that. But I used to hate that sort of thing. And I'm comfortable with where I am and moving forward in life. But last year and the year before, when the phrase like, what was it? Like infamous over non-famous. Everyone's like, well, infamous is great. Infamous is great. I'll pick up for him. Infamous is great, but it's
Sorry.
like, it's all right. I was just
No,
gonna pick up for you and just keep rambling so there was no dead air.
no, thank you. Sorry, someone opened my door, and
No, I
I
get
was
it.
just telling them to get out of here. But yeah, basically, yeah, you went on Legion of Skanks, and then were you
But
kind of really?
that turned into another BS thing. So like when you said provocateur, like what I was saying, and I guess I have to repeat it because I don't know if you heard it, but it's like like I'm comfortable with where I am now and all that happened, but it's like I didn't want this sort of infamy provocateur. I literally would just want people to see me as, like you said, like I'm a philosopher, a musician, and a comic. I do jokes on stage. I didn't want to be this sort of like train wreck freak show that that was portrayed to me in New York City comedy, and then it got elevated on Legion of Skanks, and then it's like I tried for years to get that reputation back, but there was nothing I could do. So then I leaned into it. Now I'm just like backing away and trying to find, because it like again, you guys are bringing that video up in the red bar like 5, 6 years from now. Like it's gonna follow me, and I don't care. But it's just, you know what I mean? Like
Well, to
the
be, yeah, I get it, but I think some of your best stuff. I loved what you were doing on Real Ass Podcast, where you brought that energy. You had the chick with you. You'd come to the studio, and you would just go off on like,
That was a weird one because I love Louis J. Gomez, but he books comics like months in advance or weeks in advance and tells them where he just like booked me the night of saying, hey, come in studio. And I was like, okay. And he wouldn't tell me who I was booked with, what we were doing. And then he just threw on, you're the host of the show. And I just, whatever I did, I did. You know what I mean?
yeah, it was brilliant because you have a depth of knowledge. Some people were intimidated by it. Like, I think you were on with Gillis, right? Shane Gillis, now the most famous
Yeah.
comedian in the world.
Yeah.
And you were running circles around him. You were dropping philosophy and psychology on him, and all this
Is it
different.
because you watched the clip on my YouTube where that's what I purposely did?
I
The clip,
watched I watched it over the weekend, but I remember I used to watch rap all the time, so
because
I remember seeing it in the moment.
like I didn't realize, like I had this complete misunderstanding with the Gas Digital fan base, and this is kind of why I'm like going in a different direction. Is it's almost like you said on that podcast, I like made jokes, I gave relationship advice, I told personal stories from my life, I gave philosophy, and then I said really like fucked up, crazy shit. So then the audience almost looked at it as all he does is say crazy, fucked up shit. You know what I mean? It's almost like some musician that has a shocking image, but they have like a message and then they have deep personal songs, but all they see is that shocking image. I'm trying to think, all right, like a rapper, are you a fan of like just a rapper in general, right? They talk about their life story, they give knowledge of what they're going through, they talk to other people, and then they talk about like drugs and guns, and all sometimes people hear is just guns and drugs. They looked at a very one-dimensional view of me, and I didn't understand that at first I was just like, why are these misunderstandings happening? And then the further I went in, it's like I was battling with them, like, don't you understand who I am? And they were only going to see one version of me, which is this crazy weird freak show character. And I, as much as I tried to convince that that's not who I was, it's just that's all they were going to see. And then like it just like I don't want to be a part of that audience merely for the fact that like there's so many gimmicky things that I don't know why. Like it just really bothered me when people thought it was a gimmick because you're diminishing like everything I've been through in my life and the knowledge that I acquired and going through that thing. But because they're from that world of like just being on the internet all day, every day, and then WWE, and then a show that's mainly about like gimmicks and podcast trolls, like they would look at me and think like everything I say I'm just making up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it
And
was very weird, and I wish I realized that sooner and I could have navigated it better.
well, I think it's like an 80-20 thing. So you got the 80% of the people that are the masses, the sheep, who watch
Yeah.
Gas Digital, and they're freaked out, or they're used to like the cookie cutter comedy of the day, making a little pun on whatever the latest news story is. And you came in as like an original, dropping just information on their heads, not in the same style as anyone else. So I'm sure you got a small niche amount of people who loved it. Like whenever you were on, I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude!
Well, it's
Random's
not
coming
even
on."
about that, like a story, like if like their whole audience thinks that I'm a gimmick and just making things up. So if I'm starting a story and go like, "Oh yeah, I had 2 girlfriends at this time. It was really messed up," and then a third one came in, then I start trying to rattle off jokes. If they're just like, "That didn't happen. That's not real," like then none of the jokes land. So to completely diminish the things I'm saying or the things I think as inauthentic, then it's like then nothing is funny about me. Like the reason comedians are funny is because you believe that's somewhat of their presentation. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's like imagine like Shane Gillis, the greatest. Imagine if he's like, so I grew up a conservative and then I moved, and they're like, no, you didn't. Then I moved to Philly and people are more woke. No, they weren't. Then none of his jokes will work. It's like they work on the premise of you accepting that person in what they say, and that never happened to me on Gas Digital.
And I tend to, so that when you were on there, you're dropping knowledge about having like 2, 3 chicks at once that you had
Which is
dominion
not a
over.
healthy thing to do.
But
If
it's
anyone's
true.
watching and
That's what you
thinks
were
that that's a
doing.
cool
I
thing.
could tell
Yeah.
it was real, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were working game and you were doing all
Real
this.
unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah, you got yourself into a little bit of trouble at times. You've had a crazy life, and I mean, we can go over like some of your stuff from your life. I know.
Go for it. Go for all of it. But this is what I want to get across is I didn't know it was a crazy life. I thought it was just normal. And I would tell people these stories and they're like, that's the most fucking weird story I've ever heard. And like even when I entered comedy, it just wasn't fitting or clicking. And everyone like the whole concept of that came from literally the last 4 years. That's why I did Dark Knight's docu-series with Lizzie Durazo about these certain things that happened in my life and trying to give advice and philosophy of these dark things that happened because I didn't think my life was unusual or it was like had some crazy life story. I didn't think that. It took hundreds of people in 5 years saying that to make me think like, is it that unusual? But like then looking in hindsight, yeah, it is unusual to like live out of a motel when I'm 17 years old and like have women. And I wasn't pimping women. It's like they were just asking me, could I protect them? And I had a car, so I would drive them around and then we would get drugs and things like I didn't think that was a crazy wild story, but everyone telling me that it was, I was like, then I came to the awareness that like, oh, maybe that is unusual.
Right, right. So going back, I remember hearing once that like when you were a teenager, you had some mental
Yeah.
issues,
That
right?
was the worst thing because, like, now in the climate, and this again, this is me being obsolete. Now in the climate, we know a lot more about mental health. Like, if someone has schizophrenia or even bipolar, we at least have some idea. Whereas in the like early 2000s, it just no one knew. So like when I'm like having like visions or feelings or nightmares of like demons and I'm thinking the world isn't real, they just are like it's just crazy out of a mind. But if a kid had that in 2023, we'd be like, oh, that's schizophrenia. He needs to be on this type of medication, or he needs to see this kind of doctor, or he needs to have this type of brain scans. Like they didn't know that back then. Or maybe
Right.
they did, and I just grew up in a very like small, naive town. I don't know,
Maybe.
but no one knew what the fuck it was. Like, I didn't know. I thought like I was like I literally thought it was real. Like I literally thought I was the savior and I was in hell and everyone was demons and I could see angels and things. And then I realized like, oh, that's fucking crazy. But again, there's a sick part of me that thinks, well, maybe I was right. But that's where it comes from. I guess that sort of gimmicky thing is because I do lean into saying like, oh, I'm the savior, but it's like it's both. It's like I really believe that at times because I'm in an episode and then I know it's not real. And then sometimes I say it knowing it's not real just to be fucking like funny.
No, exactly. I know what you're saying. And At that time when you were a teenager, were you using like drugs or prescription? Were you on
Not
any medication at that time
Not at
before?
first, not at
Not at
first.
first.
It
Okay.
started happening like a year, and then again, I got in trouble with school about lyrics, about things like that, and then it turned into this whole other thing of like the police coming because I wrote a song, but that was the like no tolerance policy post Columbine, post 9/11 era where you write anything on a paper that could be misinterpreted, then they call the fucking police and try to send you to jail. Like that's the what's it called? The prison to school pipe or school to prison pipeline, which now people know about, and like the psychiatric medication, how they like create more criminals and things like that. But this wasn't known. So it was like I was going through this weird type of lifestyle or vibe. And oh, I'm sorry, I didn't answer the question. The question was I was just going through that while like my thing was like high school was whatever, but I was like, I'm gonna be a rapper, I'm gonna be a musician. So that's what my mind was focused on. Then I started having all this mental illness, and then I started having these issues. So obviously the issues that they had with me would like would play a part of like almost like now that I think about it, it's like one or the other. I'm having delusions that demons are out to get me, then these people are like trying to accuse me of things and trying to do scare tactics. And I was a like sensitive, soft kid. So like I would cry a lot of times when they would do that. But then through the years, like I tried different medications. I tried like, and then that's when it turned into like a very self-aware thing, but then also like extreme craziness. Cause yeah, then like 3 or 4 years in that I did like dabble with like PCP and LSD and mushrooms and things like that. And was on like every kind of not every, but like 5 different psychiatric medications like SSRIs, antipsychotics, antidepressants, like mood stabilizers, like that. And it's still a part of my life. Like I tweeted and then I deleted because I felt insecure. But like this is the first show I'm doing on a different medication regimen. This is the
No,
first
no
one of
doubt.
like in the last few years I was on some different things, and because of life circumstances my it was got really unstable. So now I'm on a few different medications. So like I'm just trying to see how this flows.
Chill, chill. Yeah, no, so you got out of school and then you decided what you wanted to do music, you're saying. And I've heard your rap, you're an incredible rapper in the documentary, which we'll talk about more at some point.
Well,
I
that was
you're
like a mock thing. Like I wasn't a rapper. That's I'm sorry for interrupting you. It's just there's just so many stories within stories of I was a rapper from like 2008 to 2017. It all crashed and burned of like almost having these things in the industry and then not working, then building a fan and then re figuring out how I wanted to present myself. Then those 5 years, it was heartbreaking because I had quit. I never thought I was going to rap again. I was on hiatus, and then I just picked it back up in like the end of 2022 or during that. But then 2023, that's when I'd start writing songs and putting out demos and things like that. Where again, it was 5 years of not even rapping again.
yeah, so what I was going to get to was when did you discover comedy and why did you decide that's the avenue?
It's a really this is what's interesting is I draw a lot of parallels between rap and comedy. When I was 14 years old, I had this like I loved watching stand-up comedy on TV, which ironic is I thought, that 30-minute like Comedy Central presents and it was a 20-minute thing in the daytime. I thought that was the height of stand-up comedy. Like I thought if
Mhm.
that's there, that's when you made it. But I always said like weird jokes and things like that. And then I was always creative, like writing poems or like writing philosophies and things, and now kind of all morphed into there was this comedy competition like because people kept saying I like when I was like, oh, I want to be a basketball player, they're like, you can't do that. Or oh, I want to be a fucking policeman, they're like, you can't do that. Or I was like, oh, I want to like do some government work, they're like, you can't do that. When I said like I want to be a rapper or a comedian, they said you can't. And that was the first one I was like, no, I think I can do it. I mean, maybe they were right, but it was a weird thing. But that was the first thing that like latched onto me, and I was like, no, I'm going to do this. This is what I've set my path on. And then I've kind of like when I did music, it's weird when I did rap, like when I was heavy into like doing shows, networking and promoting, I was just listening to a lot of comedy. Like I could tell you a lot about stand-up comedy, like sports stats. Like if you name some of your favorite comics from like the 90s, the 2000s, I could say, oh, they had this album out there and then they switched that bit. Like I could recite comedy bits like music lyrics. And then like it kind of reversed where like doing comedy, I'm doing stand-up comedy every other night. it like I'm just like down this rabbit hole of learning about all different types of rappers, like, rappers from the 70s and like the hip hop and things like that. But that's how I still am with comedy. Like I'll research like the Lenny Bruce and who was the guy that everyone said, the guy like even Frank Sinatra did comedy. I don't know if people know that. Joe E. Lewis, like just to get a history and understanding of like the whole spectrum of comedy. Like I'm like a
Right.
researcher in general, like whether it's some sort of thing that I attach to. But yeah, so 14 years old, I decided I was going to be a rapper, but I was writing philosophy and rap songs, and I would write jokes here on the side. And that's the always thing. Like, oh, when you see rappers, they always look at comedians like, oh, I kind of want to do that. And then when you look at comedians, they look at rappers like, oh, I kind of want to do that. So I did the rap path for like maybe 10, 12 years. But I always had this thing of like, maybe once a year, I would try open mic comedy. Like, even though I was a rapper, like I did Southwest Festival, I was booked like for a week and a half to do rap shows, like a decent amount. And then there was this open mic comedy, and I just tried it. Like, I was like, oh, let me do that. So then when I officially got into comedy, June 2018, that's when I was doing comedy every other day because, the music thing crashed and burned. I never thought I was going to do it. So I slowly just went into comedy full time.
Nice. So did you, I didn't even ask where you're from, but did you end up making your way to New York City kind of to pursue both those tracks, or was it more just to kind of work on comedy, or were you already just in New York living,
Well,
working,
no,
doing
I
your thing?
don't. I live in North Jersey. Unfortunately, like I
Okay.
said, the teenage stories is I moved all around New Jersey. I lived like what's crazy about this, I don't know if you're familiar with New Jersey, but it has every sort of thing within 15 miles. Like there's really rich places like Rumson, New Jersey, and then there's like really hard ghettos like Camden or Asbury Park or Jersey City or Newark, and then there's like rural areas where you can just see mountains and people are riding horses, and then you can see suburbs, and then you can see industrial buildings, and they're all within 5 miles of each other. It's almost
Right.
like all of the United States, like every type of class or environment, all except the desert. They don't have a desert, but even like beach and everything, it's all within 5 miles of each other. So I lived all around New Jersey, but during that time, I would travel into the city and do music shows. I think my
Awesome.
first music show was like maybe 2008. It was at like a wine club or something like that. And yeah,
And
so
I could
that's,
tell, I, I think you had mentioned like you had done some psychedelics, and I had done some DMT and ayahuasca and some of those different things, and so I could really relate to some of the stuff you were talking about when you're talking about like God consciousness and different things. Like when you're talking about the
yeah.
awareness, I don't know, like I really related to a lot of the stuff you were saying. I really found it interesting too, because I love philosophy. And I'm like you in a lot of ways too, because I love to deep dive something and then know everything about it. Like
Yeah.
if I'm into hip hop, I'll know everything, the history of it,
Yeah,
comedy.
it's
If
like,
I'm,
what is it? Like those people, I don't want to say autistic because that's just the word to call everything, but what is it where like they just that they just be almost like obsessive compulsive disorder, which I don't have. It's just certain things. Like I wouldn't even say I'm a fan of music or a fan of comedy or a fan of rap or a fan of rock. It's just certain rock bands or rappers or comedians I get attached to, and then I learn everything about them. Like I
yeah,
don't know what it is I see in them, but it's like that's the person. I know all their albums or all their stage shows and things, like not all their stage shows. There's millions of stage shows, but you know what I mean? Like just
right.
certain things.
And that, yeah, like my things, like I'll get into something and I'll learn everything about it for like 6 months, and then I'll get into
Yeah,
something
on to
else.
a different thing.
Like it
That's
might
that's how I
be,
am with religion. Like, all
yeah,
right, I'm gonna learn all about Islam for 5 months and then switch. All right, let me deep dive into Kabbalah and the Torah and things like that. All right, now like let me see like paganism, like Christianity before Christianity was a thing, and now paganism and things. And so yeah, like I landed on Buddhism. Like that's the one I would say. Like Christian values, like forgiveness and love, which is weird because a lot of Christians don't have that. But like forgiveness is like it's like a superpower because when you can learn to forgive people, their energy doesn't affect you. And when you can forgive yourself, you kind of walk with, like, again, the God consciousness is if you can love everyone, look at the best of everyone, understand everyone, just have compassion and be able to forgive, you walk through life with nothing affecting you. Like no negative energy can affect you. And you're just resonating on that like Christ consciousness. But the only thing is, I'm saying that because I know that, but I don't feel that way all the time. I have fucking anger fits or moments of insecurities or like resenting the world or feeling like pissed off and things or like getting like the things I just said. Like,
Yeah. You ever
so
fuck
it's like,
around with like 12 step or any of that type of stuff? The philosophies of like Bill Wilson and all that stuff?
no, I don't know what that is. Do you mean like the 12-step program?
Yeah, yeah. It's basically based off
I
that of
have
like,
actually. Yeah.
yeah,
I
you forgive yourself, and then you
yeah.
forgive you get rid of all your, um
Yeah.
negative
The
attachments basically. Yeah,
yeah.
it's similar. It's a yeah, and it's the same thing when you walk through when you rid yourself of the burden of holding grudges, anger, all that type of stuff, you can walk more freely, so to
Yeah,
speak.
and
So
that's even and again, that's something I fucking struggle with. Like I know all that. I could tell you all about that. I could go on for days and days just talking about that, but I still kind of hold on to the like this shit we were talking about at the beginning. Like I even started the sentence with, yeah, that feminist video that still follows me, like still kind of building a little bit of resentment from fucking 6 years ago. So it's that, but that's why I land more towards on Buddhism, because Buddhism, it's like all suffering comes from desire comes from attachment, and like detach from the ego of desire and you feel at peace. Or maybe that's because I've just failed so much in life, I have to like let go of the desire of wanting to succeed because it's just been such a crazy spiral that it's like that's where I'm at. But yeah, like Buddhism and then Christianity, that's where I found like that's where I'm kind of at
I hear
spiritually.
you, bro. I hear you. And it's interesting you talk about rap and comedy, um, because I think, like Kanye said, like 10, 15 years ago, like rap is the new rock. And then, like,
Yeah.
now I think, like, comedy, once your documentary came out, Who Killed Comedy,
Mhm.
I, I can't, comedy is dead, but I would say the new comedy is anti-comedy, like the Brendan Schaub, like the homeless cats, the people who laugh at like bad comedy is
Yeah.
almost, I don't, it's like post comedy, I guess, is kind of the new
That's
era, right?
that's yeah, that's the strange thing, and I realize it's all like kind of programmed, kind of like you have female comics from like 2008 to 2017 saying like all jokes are about their pussy and sucking or sex and everything. So then all the female comics in 2018 are programmed that sex jokes are funny. So it's like it goes in waves because it's like in the 1960s, ethnic jokes were what you told. Like it was all ethnic jokes, but you couldn't tell sex jokes. Like you couldn't say like even the word penis or dick on late night TV, and now they can, but they're so sensitive about ethnic jokes. So it goes in different waves, but it's like it's programmed in that fashion. So it's like you're right, there is this sort of post comedy thing where that it just like I just believe for me, I don't have any hate or bad feelings towards any stand-up comic, like, or their art. I could fucking have, yeah, there's the lack of God consciousness. I could have hate towards a personal comic, but I'm able to objectively look at them and like like separate the art from the artist. Like a comic that I like have bad issues with, I could still watch their show and realize what's brilliant about it, how the jokes are written, how they delivered it, and that, and then rate that on a scale. Like Nanette, I watched one of her other specials and I was able to look at it objectively without what she represents to a culture or what she means or what her message is. Like, watch the special kind of as subjective as possible and like realize, you know what I mean?
No, exactly. And I think a part of the thing is like, once you look
I
at
meant Hannah Gadsby. I apologize. Nanette was the name of her
yeah,
special. Hannah Gadsby was a comedian that did that.
once you watch, I assume this is even more so for you, but you've seen enough comedy or heard enough. And once you're in that scene, you kind of almost see the blueprint of it and the
Yeah.
magic. It's like, the magician knows the
Yeah,
trick,
yeah,
right?
that's the
So
fucking it
the no-
hurts. It
the
hurts.
novelty
It's
wears
hard for
off.
me to that's absolutely it really that is such a beautiful thing you said because it does. Like you just you kind of yeah, I can't accept like Louis CK, and I'm trying to think of one other. Louis CK is probably the only comedian I could enjoy. Maybe Bill Burr or something, but it just, yeah, it deadens all sort of comedy for that's why, like I said, I'm really into like hip hop and rap now because like when I was into comedy, like that's how everyone feels. Like everyone looks at comedy and thinks like, "Oh, I could do that." And then you try to do it and you like aren't good at it. I came off like a dick because I was good within the first few months and I tried to ride this wave of like that's because I'm a prodigal comedian. Like you would see open micers like struggle to deliver and I was making the crowd laugh. My delivery was on point and that, but the secret was is because I had 10 years of a rapper. Like I had
Right.
10 years of learning stage performance and stage presentation and delivery to the crowd. So I probably shouldn't have said that, but I thought it was funny and it made comics hate me. So I feel bad about that, but it was still funny.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, there's tools and tricks of the trade, and yeah, the
Mhm.
formulaic comedy is the overwhelming majority of it. But there is, originals who are
What I
still
say,
out there who are like I could still watch to this day, and they could make me laugh because they're that good or they're that unique or
who would you
something.
say, like in your term, who would you say original?
Honestly, I tell people this, they think I'm trolling, but I thought Gringo Poppy, like Brendan Schaub, it was so
Yeah.
absurd. I know it's not like that to me, I think it's hilarious. Like him talking about the chocolate chip cookie with salsa on top and how every other like formulaic comedian hates it is like to me, I think I that's the only special that I've watched like multiple times. Like
So where
Brendan
did you
Schaub.
get your sense of humor? Because that's extremely interesting because I don't know if you saw that I did that video on breaking down again, I call the video the comedy god, but I broke down what Brendan Schaub's comedy techniques are. And I keep wanting to do that series, but like my thing is, and I know because I'm in this circle of comics that don't get judged on their material, they get judged by who they are. Like if Brendan Schaub, if no one knew Brendan Schaub from Joe Rogan or about his life or from what was it, UFC?
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is they would be able to look at the special and judge it by that. But it's like they've already made like this pre-assumption of this person and a preconceived notion. So they're watching Brendan Schaub's special with this bias. And
Some of
for
that.
the record, the same thing happens with Louis J. Gomez. Like he's perceived through a very biased lens. Sorry, I keep having like a stomach thing. He's perceived through a very biased lens where people can't look at like what's good or bad, what's his comedy or what's not, because they just see him as this other thing.
Yeah. Another guy who's one of my favorite now, and you might have come across him in New York, and it's not really because of his stand-up, it's because of his podcast, but the chat's going crazy about him, is and we had him on our last interview, is Ray DeVito. Did you ever come
Yeah,
across this guy in New York?
not yet, but he runs in kind of some of the same circles that I do. Like I'm friends with him on Facebook, so I'm sure I'll meet him at some point.
Okay. Yeah, so he's a guy who's like a journeyman comedian. He's very formulaic. He's been telling the same jokes for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah,
Very
that's
like
how the old school comics are. I don't want to name names because I feel like they might be like upset by saying that, but it's like Louis C.K. really made the model. Like before in the comedy days, you would just have your hour and you just did that for like life. You just had your hour because there wasn't really comedy specials. And even like Bill Hicks, he would record a comedy special and then tour with the same material for years. And then in the second comedy special, have a decent amount of that material. And then Louis C.K. was the one who came out with this. I do different. I mean, I don't know if it was him, but he like the fast motion of material. He started to, I don't know what the word is, or no, maybe George Carlin did that. But either way, it's like then that became the new model of like you better have a new hour every year. So that kind of comedian that like does the same material for 30 years is kind of obsolete in a way. Not obsolete because it's still funny if you've never seen it before, but
well, I think
unfortunately, it's like I'm not gonna name a comic like, all right, fuck it. Rich Voss. I've seen him so many times, I know his act. So like when I see him like in a club or something, like I could repeat the punchlines to you. You know what I mean? But and that's
right,
not
right.
bad on him. He's made successful. He's way more successful than me. So I shouldn't be talking. I'm just saying like a comic like that.
I think for individual comedians and in the trend of the last 30 years, there are trends of like types of comedy that's popular. Like maybe that Dane Cook thing was popular for a while where it was like very like physical. It's kind of the Joe Rogan
Yeah,
thing where
that's
you act
yeah.
it out. And then there's like the angry comedy, which was like kind of the Bill Burr and like,
Yeah,
there's like styles. And one of the guys I've seen a handful of times who everyone talks about and everything is that I used to enjoy a lot. I haven't really kept up with them is Doug Stanhope. But
oh my God, that's
one of the things
that
I
was
found.
one of my favorite. I mean, do you know my history? No, I'm sorry. You talk.
No. No, you go into your story. The only thing I was going to say is one of the things I had seen him like a few months apart, once in Vegas and once in Chicago. And I realized like how that was like the first time it really opened my eyes when I was younger, like to like how much of the act is stagecraft and a performance, because it seems so natural when he's like doing his stand up, like how he's
like it seems like he's just a drunk talking of like, well, I'm gonna do this and then that, but it's something that's rehearsed.
It's crafted.
He's a great example of it coming across naturally, like the rehearsed coming across. This is what I tell people, and I feel like if I keep telling these secrets, I might get killed by the comedy community. But no, I say
all
if you
bitches,
want
bro.
to, no, but if you want to get good at comedy, study hypnotism, study magic. I
Exactly.
literally say that, like study hypnotism and like cold reading if you want to get, because that's again like like I don't want to say like I'm the greatest comic ever, but I can always get laughs with just certain tricks. Like I just know certain energies or things to do where like, all right, I give Dave Chappelle's one is if you notice, Dave Chappelle says 3 or 4 really amazing jokes, and he bangs the microphone on his knee very loud and goes, ah. So then whatever jokes he could say, I was driving in a car, then at a stoplight, bangs the thing, ah, and the audience will just laugh.
Exactly. You can pick up on these things when you study it. Like obviously when you go to a show and the common man who's going to a comedy show once in a while and doesn't watch it online all day, every day, it's like, yeah, that's what works. That's what's going to get you to laugh. There is a like hypnosis to it. And that's
yeah.
Because you can watch a special without the laughs in it. And it's like, because you can edit it out, the laughs or the laugh track or whatever. And it sounds way different. But when you're in the audience, there's stuff that you wouldn't laugh at if you're watching it at home. But I guarantee you'd laugh when you're in the audience because it's like a collective
because it's
thing.
an energy. It's like in the moment. It's almost like when you're standing next to someone and you can feel them or you're having a conversation. There's this nuance, there's these wavelengths, and you don't get that from like watching a visual. And that's why I'm happy I'm doing your show. But I had this rule to myself. I said I was never going to do internet shows again because I felt like, no, really, I felt like it discounted like so many people hate me from Gas Digital. They say my comedy sucks. And I'm like, you've never seen me live. Like 98% of the people who hate me have never seen me live. And it's like, you can hate me or not, like, but just see me live and then decide whether you hate me or not. Because like, the live performance is everything to me. And now that everything's online, it just upsets me because I feel obsolete because I love doing live performances. And that's the thing I hate is as a comic, I just wanted to be a comedian. I didn't want to have a podcast or do podcast appearances, but now you have to do that. You have to do podcast appearances and learn to be funny on podcasts, which I'm not here. This is just my philosophical, like mental thing. So,
but I think this is the new comedy. Being yourself and talking, because you're above most comedians in my opinion, because
well, that's again, it's because I'm the comedy god and better than everyone else. Like, see,
exactly.
That's the gimmick I put on. But it's like I said, it's really because I learned, and that's the thing is I don't want to say I'm a rapper, but when you're a rapper, you learn to give energy to the crowd. And the mentality of a stand-up comedian is you need the crowd's energy. So I could do great in comedy almost 100% of the time, only because my stage presence is not ever letting the audience shake me, because that's what you learn as a rapper. Like in hip hop clubs with like that crazy energy, you learn that you control your energy and then you give it to the crowd. Where when you grow up as a stand-up comedian, you learn you need the crowd's energy. And
no doubt.
Like, yeah.
100%. Hey, so let's jump back to Stanhope because Decline, I think this is the story you were going to get to. Was this the rumor? Have you heard this rumor?
I've heard that rumor. Yes.
So
it's because I know the comic that did, or the guy who did it. That's what it was. That's what it is.
So was that the story you were going to say?
Well, no, it's me and Doug Stanhope have an interesting history where, um, what is our interesting history? 2000. I'm trying to think when he put his first book out. Was it 2015 or whatever? I was his. All right, I'm saying a fictional gimmick, so no one can. Okay, so when I say quotations, that means this isn't real and I'm playing a character. All right, so I was his Clonopin dealer, you fictional character. I was his pill dealer, where whenever he was in the tri-state, someone would, I think I messaged him like, hey, I got like bottles of, because I'm playing a fictional character, pills. So then he would put me in like the VIP or whatever. And then here and there, he would just let me do like 1 minute. And then there's a video where I was in a Doug Stanhope audience at his book signing and I say some weird shit and I make the whole crowd laugh. I actually have to post that video. So then 2017, he's in West Nyack. I go to do it again, and there's a picture of me on the Instagram, and I did 5 minutes and I did great. And Stanhope knows that. So he started liking my tweets and everything. Then my ex, or she's still my girlfriend, whatever, whoever that person in my ex-girlfriend, future girlfriend, when she made the documentary, because she's friends with Stanhope or acquaintances or I don't know, whatever. Um, Stanhope Stanhope was doing that podcast with things, and then she did a podcast with him and said like he started trashing the documentary, which to this day I don't believe he really watched it, because it's like he watched it and so like you watched it and said this man has interesting things to say and it was funny. Stanhope said it was just troll shit stirring shock for shock's sake. So like it hurt me the most because it's a guy I loved. Like I could tell you everything. Like I could tell you every kind of Stanhope bit. Like about I don't want to say that. Do you post these live? Like could you you post these live?
I could edit something if you
Maybe
want me
just
to.
edit how much I'm dick riding Stanhope right now. But
Yeah,
no, what
no,
I'm saying
no.
is so
Yeah.
he did that. He trashed the documentary for 40 minutes. And it's not that he hates me. I don't give a fuck if he hates me. It's just that he said shock for shock's sake and has no meaning behind what he does. I just like, how did you get that? So I don't believe he watched the documentary. Then he goes on Rogan and Jim and Sam and another podcast, and he gave the exact description of the comedian, but he has this thing. He goes, I don't want to mention names because I don't even want to give them the attention. He started doing that with President Trump. And then
Yeah.
when figures pop up, like the rapper Takeshi 6ix9ine, he starts talking about a rapper and he goes, I don't want to feed into giving that positive or negative. So then the exact description he gives that he gave where he named me, he said on Jim and Sam and those, and I'm like, yeah, what's up, man? Like, so I try to reach out to him to clear up that misunderstanding. And then there's this, crazy people just come into my life. There's this guy, he's amazing. And now that we're writing a fictional story, we're back to writing a fictional story. He was like, has a meth problem, which, it's still, he lost his family and everything. He's been in and out of prison a lot of his life. So he drinks every kind of day and will be on meth or whatever. And he made some kind of joke about burning Stanhope's house down. And like I thought like he's just drunk. He's a drunk meth head. If some drunk meth head who lived out of his car would say, I'm gonna burn Doug Stanhope's house down, like you wouldn't take that seriously, right? You know what I mean? But apparently he fucking did it.
Oh shit. Okay. So that actually.
Oh no. The funny thing is I was Caleb Casanova. I started being a State Farm representative because he kept posting. It's really funny. You can watch Stanhope on Twitter. This guy, the State Farm rep, kept dicking him around and fucking around with him. And I kept saying, hey, I'm Caleb Casanova, because like if someone said the name Caleb Casanova as State Farm, you would think that that's a fake name. And again, like I'm ready to talk it out with Stanhope, but it's like I just can't take people. Like I'm not about being the thing that is shut out of comedy because people hate me for no reason. Like I will make my way in, even if like I don't see myself as the bad guy. Like I see myself as trying to do good. Everyone paints me as the bad guy. So it's like whatever I have to do to get my this is I just fucking
No,
it is what it is.
I hear you, bro. And here's the thing with comedians that I've realized. They're all very, very self-centered, and they all work off a hierarchy system. So they'll blow anyone who's above them
Yeah.
in their mind, like, oh, this guy headlines and I'm a middle, so this guy's awesome. They'll do anything to say this guy's the
Yes.
best, and anyone below
Thank
them
you for
they'll
saying
talk
that. That's
shit about.
exactly what the fuck they do.
Yeah,
And I always believed in like, I treat the open micer the same way I treat Shane Gillis. Like that's literally how, like when I see Shane, because me and him are cool, I'll like, what's up, dude? Like that. And so, oh man, happy for this and that. And then the open micer, they're like, oh, what did I do wrong? And I was like, oh, try this and this, but keep doing it. You're great. Like I grew up because I guess people get into stand-up comedy because they kind of have this narcissism, and which there's nothing wrong with narcissism as long as you're aware of it. Like the funny thing about me is all these comics are self-deprecating, and they talk about how much they hate themselves and they're a loser, but they'll post videos with like the perfect angle and the perfect caption with the, whereas I say, oh, I'm the greatest fucking ever, and then I'll post a video where it's like this weird angle and the sound is off. So obviously there's more self-hate in me than them, but it's like comics, they're insecure
very
and then they're
sensitive.
narcissistic, so then they like jealousy comes along with that. Whereas because I was a rapper, I learned like to be secure with myself, I learned to be confident, and then I learned to not be jealous. Again, resentment is still a big issue with me. Like if that is a demon that lives in me, just resentment in general. So that might be my downfall in comedy is I try to let go of everything, try to forgive, but then it's like a monster that just so. But also comics probably have resentment or spite. Yeah, that's a trait I share in common with comics. But yeah, so yeah, comics, they're just a different breed of person, and I can accept them and I can love them and I can understand them. But if they don't feel the same way towards me, I don't mind. But then when they actively stop me from trying to be successful or trying to make a name for myself, it's like just because you hate yourself doesn't mean you have to diminish everything that I'm doing. Like they think it's weird if I reach out and try to help them. Like Brendan Sagalow, when he first started talking about wanting to be a rapper, he said it in this very insecure tone of like, and I was like, dude, just go out there and do it. Like, fuck everyone. Like, cause he's in the comic circle, like how like Bob Kelly and this comic, it's like, what are you doing wearing that hat? Like how they just shit on each other all the
Yeah,
time and they have no confidence. So Brendan Sagalow was like, kind of put this real interest into it. And I just kept DMing him like, yo, fucking do that shit. Like, why would you like fuck what everyone says? So then he kind of did this rap song where he's like, you could tell he was still insecure about doing like, oh, they're gonna hate me. And I was like, dude, if you love that, fuck your audience. Like, do what you love and feel you're more self-love than them. And then he started to do a better thing. But then he was on Jim and Sam, and it's almost like he was down talking it. Like he goes, I was just writing rap song. And then Sam goes, yeah, but it's not like a real thing you were doing. It goes, yeah, it was just like a game in my phone. Like you could see that he really wanted to do this thing, but he like didn't have the self-confidence. So I kept DMing like, fuck them. And then I said, you're being like a comic trying to be a rapper. Just be a rapper. Just get in the headspace of a rapper and fucking do it. And now he's making like legitimate songs. But the reason I'm saying that is because he thinks I'm weird for trying to inspire him. Like that's the thing in general. Comics all across the board fucking hate that I have a positive mentality and I try to be uplifting. That's like fuck them, which that's not uplifting. I'm sorry. But I try to just be uplifting everyone when like just like you know what I mean? Like I always try to give advice. I always try to be uplifting. I always try to like if someone feels something wrong, like I felt like that's the way to be. And to me, to Louis J. Gomez's credit is he's the only type of person or the only comic that I've ever done. Maybe Shane Gillis. I haven't spent enough time with Shane, but Louis J. Gomez is the only one who tries to raise other people up because he's secure with himself sometimes, but other comics just try to tear each other down, and any kind of respect or any kind of kindness or any kind of inspiration, they say it's cringe. They say you shouldn't be doing that. And especially with female comics, if you try to do that, they think you're trying to fuck them. And it's like, no, you said you had trouble writing taglines. You have good punchlines. So I wrote out a whole thing of taglines. Just take it. I don't want to mention the name of the female comic.
no doubt, bro. Well, hey, so the chat's going crazy about Ray DeVito, but
yeah, I want to check him out because like this is such an interesting, unique type of podcast thing. And
here's something about him that ties into all this. So, Stanhope. Do you remember when Stanhope was doing those interviews with the guy Jay Twynham, the guy who murdered his own mom?
This is what I'm saying. Is that like, what is the message or meaning? That's shock for shock's sake. Yes, I remember that. And the
Yeah.
only reason he had him on stage is because, oh, he murdered his mom. This is edgy and serial killer. And then like, fuck you, Stanhope. Like,
So
you know what I mean? Like,
that guy lived with Ray DeVito, and
oh,
after the murder, he drove to New York and called Ray and tried to get back into his apartment, and he actually went to a Legion of Skanks show. So it's crazy how all these little circles
that's the weird
overlap.
thing about stand-up comedy. Now I definitely got to fucking contact Ray DeVito. I just
Yeah, you got to hit him up, bro. See if he can do a show. He does Tuesday nights at the Stand once a month.
All right. I apologize because, like, here I'm a hypocrite. Stand-up comics are hypocrites. I just talked about how comics, I lift other comics up, other comics just shit on each other, and then I just started shitting on this one comic who opens for Stanhope. And it's not because I'm jealous. I'm just like, oh, that's not. But no, I was actually just shitting on Stanhope's motive for doing that. But maybe the guy's really good now. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like,
and that's the
you
point.
Gotta kill your mom. Like,
well,
I'm just fucking around.
On your point, I think Stanhope kind of got woke and was worried. He fed into he fed into the cancellation. I think he got fearful of cancellation after Trump got elected. So that's probably why he wanted to distance himself from you and won't say Trump or won't say 6ix9ine's name or any of these guys, because everyone was kind of on pins and needles at that time. Once Louis C.K. got canceled, then anyone could be, basically, even though whatever. Basically, like kind of the Legion of Skanks. There's a handful of other guys who are just like, even like, I don't know who gives a fuck really, but yeah, I think that's probably why he wouldn't say your name, or he was, selling you short a little bit, maybe when you guys had mutual respect at one point. But whatever, fuck him. Yeah, I don't watch his shit anymore. So
no, I'll still watch his comedy special. Like, the one he put out in 2018 is, to me, I was like disappointed because the first 10 minutes were just the most brilliant, like classic Doug Stanhope bit. Like, oh my God, it might be one of like the best segments he had in his entire career. But then there was like the rest of it just kind of like fell short and just felt like he was like just talking to you. And I was like, what the fuck happened? But then there was, I think, the Indian bit, the Indian man bit, like, and then the girl suicide bit, but that's like 20 minutes of it. So I'm just wondering, like, what happened where the special fell off, like when he's telling the story about sort of, and again, I started to realize this thing about comedians is people lean into an image. Like, obviously, I'm now shuffling mental health. You know what I mean? Oh, my medication. Stanhope's thing was, oh, I'm drunk. Oh, I said this because I was drunk and that. And, so Stanhope leans into this dirty, rugged comedy thing. Like, he goes, I'm not like those other guys. I'm in a 1-star motel and I take a van to, to comedy clubs. And I go, you could see it. Did you see the movie he did? That was fucking amazing. Oh,
I was kind of out of the Stanhope thing after like 2014.
The movie is fucking good. The Road Dog, which, look at me. I literally just talked about my hate for Stanhope, and I can still give props for props. Dude, the movie was fucking incredible. It was funny. It's weird because it's one of those movies where you could see Stanhope running his old bits, like, like from the 2002 about religion, but it was just a really funny, it was really emotional and heartfelt, and it was really dark. And the only thing I hated was the ending, but it was about a guy who wanted to end. It showed Stanhope's kind of ignorance towards successful comics. Like, it wasn't painting him, like it started to paint him as like, oh, he's the rebel, he's the real one in fake comics. But then it showed like a little jealousy and stuff. It was such a fucking great movie. I love that. I might watch that movie again tonight.
I'll check it out.
So fucking great. Like, it might not be the funniest movie you've ever saw, but like, it was so deep. It's a comic who's like about to die from alcohol poisoning. His son comes back in his life. So he maybe his son wants to be a comic, and then that's just the dynamic. He takes him out on the road. It's a really fucking great movie.
I want to get back to your movie, Who Killed Comedy. For all the people checking out this interview, you guys got to watch it. Like I said, it was ahead of its time. And the person you made it with was Lizzie, right?
Lizzie Durazo. And we also did a mental health true crime comedy podcast, Dark Nights, it's a docu-series with Lizzie DeRosa where we discuss things in our life. Like weirdly, like the fact that I've known a decent amount of people who have murdered people, and she's known a decent amount of people who are like child molesters who like got convicted and did 26 years. So it's like she tells stories about that, and then we're making jokes, but we're giving advice of like, oh, if you've been molested, here's what you do. And then I talk about like people who have killed themselves in my life and how traumatic that was for me. And then I give like a philosophy on death and the meaning of life and things like that. And
Well,
you
that's
know what? Like,
interesting because
I
the true
kind of
crimes.
appreciate like Stanhope, like, because he let me know how I looked. Like Stanhope's like, oh, he's just shock for shock's sake. And I'm like, I know I'm not that, but maybe that's the presentation because all you see is the feminist video. And I don't think he saw the documentary, but a clip of it. And then you just see me saying weird shit on Real Ass Podcast. It's like you would get the interpretation. So now I have to overcompensate and make sure people know, like, no, this is really like about that. And it sucks because some of the episodes are, I keep interrupting you. I've watched it happen 10
No,
times. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry.
I like it when you roll, bro. So no, I was just trying to bring up the doc. God, what was I was going to get to about it? But no, I was going to say, I just want to interject and say, well, that's funny because like true crime is like the female version of like comedy podcasts. Like comedy
That's what we
podcasts are
tried to
popular for
do.
dudes, and then true crime podcasts are popular for
But
chicks, right?
that was the marketing angle is, but
Right.
the thing that's fucked up, and like we did the shows and she had to take work somewhere else. She moved to Tennessee and I have to work near the city, and she just lifestyle's different. Me and her are still really cool. I love her, but we just have this distance. And she's not in that headspace anymore. But the interesting thing about that show is like I marketed as mental health and comedy and advice. And the weird thing is the like sort of mental health advice people didn't like it. Like I couldn't promote it because it was just too much dark comedy, saying too many fucked up things. But then the people who like dark comedy might not like it because it's like I'm just being serious and sincere about like drug overdose for 15 minutes and then I start making jokes, or then we just trail off in a weird thing. So it was a hard place to market. But the joke to me is I thought labeling a true crime would have that sales, but I realized all true crime podcasts are about a crime, not crimes that we've experienced. Like that was like, oh, I fucked up there. You know what I mean?
It's like mixing two things together that aren't meant to be, like ice cream and on top of pizza or something, you know?
Yeah. Well, no,
Yeah.
it's like I think it works in a unique way because the visuals are amazing. God bless her for her ability and the hours we put in that. But it's like there is a lane. I know somewhere. I just have to get more. My thing, as I realize, unfortunately, is I'm like a persona. Like people won't like me for my music or strictly for my comedy. They'll like me and then they'll want to get into my music or comedy. So I know that show has a place somewhere, and it is a podcast, but it's just a very high produced sort of podcast with, because me as a music artist, I wrote it out with themes, or not wrote it out, but I had topics and themes, and then I made them all connect together. Like the last episode, session 8, is just this beautiful, like we tell all these dark stories through it, all these fucked up things that happen, all these tragic things, all these like hating life. And then it's like how to find the beauty in life, how to find purpose and meaning in life, and how to find the good things in life and things like that. But yeah, it's a weird thing because I like it's fucked up like true crime, like it's we I guess we weren't supposed to talk about our true crimes. We're supposed to, so it was a weird fucked up thing to label it true crime.
Well, that Lizzie chick, that was like your main piece, right?
Uh yes. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to say this. Okay. I'm trying to calculate how this is gonna affect other women in my life if they see this.
Yeah, because you
Because
got your side pieces, of
if I
course.
say she still is, then they're gonna be like, text me, what the fuck was that? But if I say no, me and her are apart, is she gonna be like, do you really feel that way towards me? So
Scratch it, you know. We don't need to be talking about the hose right now. That's for
yeah.
sure. No, so yeah, the documentary, like I've reiterated, it's ahead of its time. It's very cool. It almost predicted like the who killed comedy and the death of comedy that really kind of hit around the pandemic. It was just so oversaturated, and stand up never has really returned to that same level since pre-pandemic, in my opinion.
I've talked to her about wanting to do a sequel to it, but I guess she doesn't have the time. She's got a lot going on, and she's been doing great. Like with from where, like it's almost like where we were both messed up. I mean, I did help her along the way, but she really like achieved being a better human being, whereas I kind of still circling the same unfortunate issues and things like that. But I can save everyone else but myself. That's my deal. But is yeah, like I would like to ask you personally, because I guess in the documentary, what I remember from it is that I said it's almost like corporations that created corporate like comedy went mainstream as a whole. So that kind of watered it down. And then the new age of like the internet kind of took out the magic of it. But like when you say it's ahead of its time, what do you actually mean by that? Because people have said that. Like Chrissy Mayer said that, but I actually don't know what that means.
I mean, I think you just kind of predicted early on that, like, yeah, you touched on the corporate thing that took over comedy, and you kind of at the end you said who killed it, and your conclusion was it was Amy Schumer, and that was kind of the
Yeah.
trend back then. But no, I think basically from that point to now, it's actually even ramped up more the wokeism and the monoculture of stand up, and no one, maybe some people who maybe knew the pandemic was coming, but no one knew exactly how that was going to affect everything. And I really just think it was the death of stand-up comedy as we
Well,
knew it.
now the
And
problem is there are and like you might hate me for this because I'm attacking both sides, but it's almost like comedy got so woke, they cared more about activism and social justice than being funny. So they're not funny. So then this new breed of comedy that's coming out is very right wing, like Ben Shapiro's network of like will, but it's like it's just the same thing. It's just the
exactly.
opposite thing. All you're doing is just saying non-woke things, but you're just like you're not being funny, you're not crafting a joke, you're just like, oh, what's the difference between that woman, liberal woman, and conservative? Liberal woman doesn't have a dick, or just
So bad.
like but it's like that's to me what I feel like is I don't know, like I
Hey,
don't know.
there's a small lane of that. I'm not into any of that shit either. Like Chrissy Marr started doing that, where she's now like
But she's
considered.
genuinely, to me, exactly. She rode that wave, and God bless her. I love her, but she is legitimately funny. Like whether you like comedy or not, because this is what I don't get is like there can be comedians that just aren't your taste. You can just I don't like that sense of humor. I don't like that style. But like to me, at the border, the baseline is like if you can get on stage in a comedy club and make people laugh, that means you're funny. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like you can have personal preference. Like you can say you don't think Chrissy Mayer is funny, and I can say like there's certain things I like about her, like and I like she's made me laugh a few times. Like we've done shows together, you know what I mean? So it's like it's a weird question for you to bring that up for me because it's like, oh man, if she sees this clip, you know the politics game. If I don't say the perfect thing about Chrissy Mayer, but I've always had love and respect for her because she's always been kind to me, and then like she's always like understood what I was about and really you get what I'm saying? Like, but it's
No,
also
I
like
get it.
politics. But what I'm saying is like I genuinely enjoy her comedy. Should I say this more convincing? No, it's just like no, I do like her comedy. It's just not my type of comedy. That's all. But it's like because I've seen her live, it's better because you get that live feeling. Like if the whole audience is laughing, you're definitely going to laugh sometimes. And if I'm going on next, then I'm definitely going to laugh. Or no, I
Yeah.
apologize. She was always the headliner and I was a middle or opener.
That's the thing. I mean, and that's
Now that was a
okay.
weird one to bring up because me and
I
her work together and there's a lot of politics behind that and she hasn't put me on in a few years, which I'm just grateful for everything she's done for me. But like now for me to say about her comedy, because I don't want to be fake. I don't want to be like, oh my God, Chrissy Mayer's amazing. She's the fucking greatest comic. She's the new age. But it's like, I don't want to say, you get what I'm saying? It's like, there was such a
yeah. No, it's
layered
political to some
person for you.
extent. Your
But it's a
response.
good, yes, it's a good thing that you brought up because when she does the political humor, it does lean, fucking, I'm never gonna get a gig if she sees this, but it does lean a little bit into that area. But when she does just jokes about other things, you get what I'm saying? Like, no,
No, I
overall,
do.
she's a very
I've never
clever
seen her
person.
stand up. I just know she's kind of tangentially
I
related to
get
this Dabbleverse thing I'm in.
exactly. I
So I
know that.
kind of
That's
know
what
who
I'm
she
saying.
is, but I've never seen her do stand up. I've seen her podcast. I know she kind of
Yeah, well, when
has
she
a
does the
theme to
political
her.
thing, yeah,
It,
when
it
she
helped
does
her
the
build up a huge audience, though. Kind of like you
which
were
God
saying,
bless
it's
her.
a
Yeah, that's why I'm
counter
trying to
reaction
do
to the woke stuff. So
exactly.
I
So
don't falter for it, but at the same time, I
you
was just making
understand
it.
it
I
for
was
what it
using it as a
is.
point of what you
Exactly.
were
And
saying.
that's a
So
really accurate point. It just, if you didn't use one that I was personally connected
yeah.
to in the industry, it would have been better for me to talk about. But yeah,
Well,
I
here
get what you're saying.
I want to get into like because you were talking about like you're on a new medication regimen, and I want to get into talking about some of your stuff with that. But I want to touch on this. Have you
Well,
ever known?
unfortunately, you couldn't answer and please write
Oh,
down what you're saying is that the documentary was ahead of its time. Like, I still don't understand what that means.
well, I think like at the time when you did it, for one, it was
Oh wait,
funny. It
never mind.
was
I'm sorry. This is how stupid I am. You already told me your answer and I accepted. All right, go back to what you're saying. I just blanked out of my memory. You told me because I predicted all of the things. All right,
yeah,
I
basically,
apologize.
yeah.
I'm sorry. That was the stupidest thing that happened. We literally had a conversation and then my mind just blanked it out. Wait, what was the thing you just explained? Okay, so what you were talking about, you were saying something about the pills and the medication, and then you said
Yeah,
a different thing.
I want to talk about that, but I want to go back to the guy for the third time that I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to sound obsessed. People already accuse me of being obsessed, but have you ever like I don't know how to frame it, but I'm basically bringing up Ray. So his stand up's not funny,
Mhm.
but like his podcast, like he goes live every night. And have you ever known a guy who just like lies about everything? You might say like, hey, like just inconsequential, like compulsive lies.
Well, this is the interesting thing about that. See, this is the problem is I can never get a straight answer. That's why my head is so messed up is I have to give layered points. Is I'm really truthful about everything, or I try to be as truthful as possible. But it's so I assume everyone's being truthful. Like if you told me, oh man, I went to jail for 3 years because I killed like 5 children, but the judge found this loophole in the case. So like I would just believe you and go off of that topic, like whether you were lying or not. But I realize a lot of people do lie, but then I will give credit to when you're a stand-up comedian, if you're leaning into funny, the lie is always better. Like if you're on stage and it's like, oh, I walked to the store, if that like say the lie to get the laugh. Like as a stand-up comedian, there has to be a certain amount of embellishment. You get what I'm saying? So,
Yeah. Okay.
but I
So
do know people, I know one or two
for
people that just compulsively lie. They lie about weird shit. Like if they went to McDonald's that day, they'd go, oh, I went to Burger King and the
or
line was that.
Subway, right?
Like just like weird lies that don't mean anything.
Yeah, so better instead of even referring to him or a stand-up comedian, do you watch any like lol cows online?
I try to stay offline. What I don't know what those are.
So there's like people, I guess like I'm trying to think of who's something. I guess like did you follow like the whole Joe Matarese thing that Porcelain did? Did you ever see that?
No, I try to stay away because that's what I'm saying is it's like I get lumped into being a gimmicky, he lies about everything type of person. And I
Okay.
know I don't like people in my life know that. Like, I would love for a moment to happen where the whole world had it. Then you see all these like kind of celebrities, these rich people, these gang members, these like sex workers, these fucking crazy religious groups, these like not religious group, but people like all these people come out and say, yeah, we worked with him, or yeah, he lived with us. And then people like, oh shit, it's real. You know what I mean? But
Well,
so
it sucks because I shouldn't have even used like a comedian, but there's like basically like streamers. There's like people online who like
that's what I mean. I hate that because they put on a sort of image, and I'm guilty of that. You had this guy on, his name was Willie something. And
yeah.
I first went into this of like, oh, this is just he had the glasses. This is just some douchebag who's like, oh, I'm a musician and this. And then I watched him talk and I was like, oh my God, this guy's great. Then I checked out his music and I really liked it. So like I was trying to find the guy on Facebook and I was like, he had this really deep introspection. And I realized like that's my desensitization is I look at things the way that everyone else does. And that's why I try not to do podcasts because I don't want to get lumped into that like, oh, Mark Random just lies all the time, all his stories are fake and shit like that. So
No, I get it.
So like when you
I
say streamers, like streamers in like a Dabbleverse or things like that, like I try to not even pay attention to that because I try to focus on this sort of realness. But I realize to the kids, it doesn't care. They don't care anymore. Like back in the 90s, like hip hop was all about, or music in general, like rock bands, if they were writing songs about shit, you had to feel like they were really living it. And if you felt like they were fake, then they were fake. But it's like almost like it just got to a point with the internet in the 2010s where people don't care if it's real or fake. Like if a streamer is lying about everything and putting on a gimmick, or they're real about everything in their lives, it's just if they like it and it feels good.
no doubt. I think like the evolution. I like the people who are real online,
But it's like you can't even tell the difference anymore. That's my issue with it.
especially in the performing arts of like comedians doing podcasts or themed
Yeah.
shows, that type of stuff. So yeah, that's where like a lot of the podcasts now, maybe like the Gas or like some of the other comedians doing podcasts. And I caught on to something like around 2000, 2001. Like they were all like subscribing to this like company that would give them topics to discuss on their podcast. So if you were watching like Mark Norman's podcast and you were watching like Fighter and the Kid and you were watching they all had they would talk about the same thing on the same days.
Oh, wow. That's a weird thing to connect together.
Yeah,
That's a
so
strange thing to connect.
so then once you start really seeing that, it's kind of like okay. So
Yeah.
they'd have the same like news topics or like oddball news story of the day type stuff. It was weird because you'd see it across a lot of different shows, and I found out it was like a subscription service that would like give you stuff to talk about for the week. Because when you're doing 2 to 3 shows a week, whatever, you got to have stuff to talk about, and you're not just going to be telling your comedy jokes. So all these shows eventually just devolved into like, hey, we're going to talk about whatever 2 to 3 trending topics were.
Yeah.
So it all became the same shit. So that's kind of like, I almost think like the post podcast. So my point was I like the people who are like odd, but do a stream of consciousness stream online.
Yeah.
And they don't have to even be comedians. They can be anyone. So they can be like, there's this guy in, I guess he's Dabbleverse, Joey C. And he's like a ex-felon guy. He's like this old Italian guy who's like old, recovery meth head guy. And
see, I'll look him up right now.
Yeah, you might be hard to find. It's called Catalano TV, but he's just a real dude, man. He's just a character. So, and a lot of people hate him, a lot of people like him. But he's not big or anything. But you watch him, and it's like it's entertaining because it's him. It's unique, And I almost think like that's like as more people come online and stream and entertainment's going this way, like this is the new, like it's no longer going to be like one to everyone or even one to many. It's going to be like everyone's going to have little niche pod pockets of people.
It's almost like mental socialism. Like it's like in the music industry, there was only 100 artists that sold like 10 million records put on by it, and now there's like 100,000 podcasts, and you get like at least 100,000 fans. Like 1 million is the most. Like if there was only 20 or if there was only 100 podcasts in the world, they would be having 250 million views. But now because everyone has a podcast, that it's like the most you can strive for is getting 100,000 people to watch and subscribe and things like that. Yeah, it's like the hierarchy spread out to where it's just like a rectangle now, and the people are making and that sort of thing.
Well, eventually it'll just get to where everyone has a podcast and everyone gets 150 views because they have like 150 people they know,
Just like that's why I don't want that to happen. I guess because all right, what do you think will happen after that? Do you think humanity will just get caught into a podcast world? Like they're almost the money they make from their podcast goes into the subscription of the podcast they watch, and then it just keeps spiraling and cycling. Like, where do you see that going? Is that humanity going to be forever? Hold on, I want to write that thought down while you answer.
Yeah, I think in over the next few years, we'll get into like a coin denominated reality where everything will be microtransaction related. So if you click on someone's Twitter post, they get a fraction of a penny. If you watch their podcast, they maybe get a tenth of a cent, and it's all going to just be automatically like happening behind the scenes in
Yeah.
like the Web3 environment of
But this is what breaks my heart, because it like really breaks my heart. And I realize that I have this problem is I put such a value on authenticity, which again, like back to Buddhism, that's ego. Like there's like authenticity is just a concept I created that I put value on, or I didn't create authenticity, but that's what I put ego on, is authenticity. And I think even in my comedy philosophy video, I don't know if you saw that one, but that's where I'm like talking about like almost like historical events, how they like through time, they just mean nothing. And it like, that's my ego that feels hurt, that through time, like my love for authenticity won't exist anymore. And just that like just that sort of like that authenticity is obsolete, because what you're going to have, almost like these streamers fighting, like these streamers, they grow up, they're teenagers, they live their life online, they say things, they see things in the news, then they talk about that, but like that's just their whole life. You know what I mean? Like even when the one guy couldn't come on because he has a kid and that, it's like, okay, he lives real life. You know what I mean?
right.
And
No,
that's not to disrespect anyone. Again, that's not to disrespect anyone that likes that. I guess just me, my personal preference. And again, I know I'm obsolete. I sound like the old man who's looking at the new kids, but I just like, I wish there was more real life. It's almost like, dude, like, are you a fan of Andrew Tate?
yeah, Top G, of course.
All right, yeah. It's like all the podcast he spawned of people, it's like they're just saying the things he said. Like
The manosphere.
whether I disagree with Andrew Tate or not, I like him in certain ways. It's I respect that he came to those conclusions by his life experience. Like he read books, he did travel, he went through relationships, he had this relationship with his dad, he had pain to overcome, he had a lot of trials and tribulations where he came to these conclusions or whatever it is. So I feel like I whether I like it or not, I feel like he has at least that value. Whereas like again, the manosphere just looks at him and just copies everything he says. And I feel like, and again, I don't know, again, this is ego that I shouldn't have, but I feel like they don't have the right to say that because they've never experienced it.
Oh yeah, there's tons of well, that's like everything. There's a I guess an effect that happens from it where imposters or copycats kind of pop up. And yeah, I remember when he had his moment. Basically, actually, I remember when he was on Red Bar the first time.
Andrew Tate.
Yeah, he was on Red Bar before he became famous, and then he had that moment where he became huge. And yeah, basically, God, what was it? Maybe like 2 years ago, where he went from kind of being unknown to like taking over the internet for a couple months, and then
Well,
I don't
I
know.
heard about him through being banned. Like once they said everyone
Right.
blocked him from sources, that's where I became.
Yeah, I just remember when he was doing the rounds around that time, hearing some of his stuff, and I thought it was hilarious. And then, but beyond that, like I haven't kept up with him lately. But what do you got? You taking some kratom?
No, not yeah. Well, no, but the
we
thing
had
about
we
Andrew
had
Tate
Mersh
is,
on, and he was doing that too.
yeah, I feel bad, but it is what I
That's all
love
good.
those guys. I don't know why because me and them are cool. Like we'll DM back and forth, but they haven't had me on, and I don't have that, hey, why don't you have me on type of energy. But it is what it is. But
Who,
yeah, I love
Mersh?
those guys. Yeah, like
Mersh and
Mersh and
Royce?
Royce. I love those
Oh,
guys.
dude, we'll get you and him on here sometime if you want to do like a little. He's
Yeah,
been he's been on here a couple times. He's a
yeah,
funny ass fucking dude. Great broadcaster. But
yeah.
yeah, let's get back to you for a little bit instead of. I know it's fun talking philosophy or
But
talking.
yeah, Andrew Tate is like he is real, but then he's also like a character. And I realized like people don't know like I realize things can be both because I realize I guess that's what I'm gonna become is I can be real about the things I'm saying and experience, but I also it can be a characterization of like a crazy mentally ill patient. Just like Andrew Tate, he's real about some of the things he says, but he's almost like a characterization of that guy. Like if I described like think of someone who just has I have a lot of cars. I fuck hot women. Here's a cigar. Here's my nice suits. Like that's an archetype of a human being.
Yeah.
but I believe so. A lot of the things he says are genuine. You get what I'm saying? And it's
No,
like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it can be both. He can be both a character and real. And I feel like
Exactly.
a lot of the world doesn't get that in like looking at podcasts and things.
And I mean, you can get into you can get into conspiracies about him and
Oh, I
what all
totally
that
believe
stuff.
he's just there's 10 people behind the camera and he has to say what they write down and they pick out what he wears and they pick out the angles. I fully believe he is in a prison of that.
Could be, you never know. But I want to get into back to you for a second. Um, so you said you are switching up your meds, and like, what is your mental and health kind of been like over the last like 4 years? Because I haven't seen you
Oh,
around as much.
Jesus,
3 years, 2
4 years.
years, last couple years, a year. Let's just
All
say a
right.
year, whatever it is.
Um, in 2020, like it's fluctuated, but it's like it just goes up and down. Like 2011 was like this, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, but then 2016 like this, and 2017, but then crash and burn 2018, then 2019 it kind of went up, then 2020 was good, then 2021 it wasn't, and 2021 was my last like crash and burn. So then 2022 I've been building it up. 2023 was like that's where I was like that's where my spark was going. I was doing a lot of rap shows. I was performing a lot, I mean music rap shows, not real ass podcasts. I was doing a lot of comedy shows. I was doing a lot of podcasts. I was writing a lot of music. I was traveling a lot. I did like a small 2-week tour down in like the South. And then later that year was in Tennessee. I did 3 days there, 3 different, Knoxville, Nashville, and Memphis, and it was just this star, and I kept going, and for whatever reason it kind of burnt out in December. I don't know what happened in December. So then like January, I think because I had to move, like I had to move between places, the whatever, like a lot of personal family like issues of like people possibly dying and relationships falling apart and having to move and find a new place. There was just like, I guess I was just in the air of where the fuck am I going to live? Because I'm always like one of those move around people. But it's just that was so then in January I moved, and it's like it felt like rock bottom. Like I'm just gonna lay, and I went to like upstate or whatever. Just that's what it's gonna be. It's all over for me. And then I just slowly like started trying different medications, and then I'm back at it. Like even this is me like picking myself back up again of like, okay, let me see how I present myself on podcasts and on the internet. And then, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to do comedy shows and just like almost like restarting an engine after it crashed in December, and like January, February, and March are picking it up.
Nice. So this is like your reintroduction to the internet, basically.
Yeah. After like, I guess my last one was like maybe October. Yeah. So like 3 months of just like not being and then coming back. But that's kind of the cycle I do.
I hear you, bro. I'm gonna play a quick little halftime break or a little something because I got to run to the bathroom and I don't have Mir
I
here.
got
So
you.
let me put something up for us to watch, and then let me upload it into. Actually, I'm just gonna do this. This will be easier. 1 second. We'll be right back.
Is to see the first time I went on markrandom.com. You can find my music album, my comedy, my docu-series on YouTube and all that. And I was just like making sure there wasn't dead air.
Thank you, bro. Sorry about that, man. Usually
No, it is what it is.
I drank 2 of these coffees and it's like I had to piss like a motherfucker, bro. But
no, I usually, unfortunately, I like pee in bottles. Like if I have to do a show or something.
yeah, shit. If I would have had this thing down here, I probably could have.
Yeah.
But No, good man. So you're doing good now, mental, and you're trying to get back. Are you what's on the horizon? Are you trying to build a show out?
Well, again, my thing is like since I'm distancing myself from New York City comedy, like, all right, I'm not gonna be there. I just it either this is either this really is the end for me or something new and bright is gonna come my way because I'm like, I kind of don't want to do internet things anymore, but I still realize I need to build an audience. So I'm thinking of like sort of viral jokes I can do that are more like what I call third dimensional or just things like that. But also, yeah, I have no idea. Sometimes I feel okay with that and I'm taking it day by day. Like, okay, I'll just record a song or I'll just do a show or I'll just write out some jokes or I'll go an open mic. And then other times I'm like, this is like looking at the future. There's nothing there for me. I have no future in comedy because I can't do the politics game. I have no future on the internet because the authenticity, like it just characters blur together. Like people have been asking me, and this I only checked this out because a lot of people messaged me about that show Fish Tank or whatever it was, Fish
Yep,
Live.
the
Like
fish
people
tank.
like people have said you got to go on it, you got to submit to be in it, but like
You'd be great on
I
that.
just that's what everyone says, but I can't allow, like maybe I will submit to that, but I just can't allow myself to like it's almost like I'm resisting trying to become a character, but I know like that's just what's happening, you know, like that's just where gravity is taking me. So and I feel I guess my traumas of feeling misunderstood because I felt misunderstood as a teenager and it turned into a fucking I needed lawyers, CAT scans, mental hospitals, being homeless, parents and relationship fell apart, like police on me. So it's like I have this trauma of being misunderstood. And I guess if I go into being a character, I'm gonna be misunderstood. So like I'm trying to resist that with a lot, but I guess that's like the future. So I guess I gotta heal that trauma before I because if I had like if I'm okay with being seen as just a wacky gimmick, I could really just take over. I could really like make myself a spectacle. But it's just that thing of I like again, like I don't know if you would have like if you had just watched me on Real Ass Podcast, I don't know if you would have gotten that I go this deep or I have this many thoughts about things. I thought you just think the whole time I'm like, oh, fucking Jews and genocide and rape and women. And you get what I'm saying? Because that's what the majority of the Gas Digital fans heard. So you would just think like I would just say fucked up things or joke around, but
Right.
I wouldn't get this introspective sort of thing.
No, no doubt. And
But
I
all
don't
right,
know.
like if I went on Fish Tank, would they get that about me, or would they just see like, oh, he's fucking schizophrenic and he talks about Jews being aliens and from different? He says he's the savior and the Messiah from different dimensions, or would they like look into like, oh, because he has that mental illness and he really thought he was the savior at one time and he walks that borderline? You get what I'm saying?
I don't know. I don't really watch that shit, but what's interesting now is like there's all these guys like it's funny cuz on the Red Bar clip of yours,
But that's a
uh
perfect example. That is a beautiful example. We shouldn't have even talked about fish. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
well, no,
Go
no,
to
I
your
was going to
point.
say on that clip it's funny cuz you guys were breaking down and there he was breaking down you and on Gas Digital, and then on Gas Digital you and Lewis were breaking down Kevin Brennan getting punched or choked out by another comedian. Now Kevin Brennan does a show now, but he doesn't really do anything. He does it's not comedy. He just reads the chat and responds to it. And there's all these guys like the Brennan effect they call it, where there's all these other guys who former comedians, old like 50, 60, 70-year-old guys who are like doing these streams where they just sit there and interact with their chat. Now, you can carry a show by yourself, so you could do one of these. I don't know if it's something you'd be interested in.
Well, I would love to do an advice show, but it's like I don't have the fan reach for that. Like if I had I wish I had 10,000 fans. So I tried to do it. I tried to do Dark Nights live where every I would just host a Twitter space and give life advice, but it's like only one or two people would come in and it just didn't work because I just don't have that reach. But I would love to just go live and then just give people advice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could build it up probably and do it, but yeah,
Yeah,
half
that's
the
actually
people in
where I
here.
might go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you can try. Like, it's just all it is regularity, going live and answering, interacting with the chat. So, we don't really do it on our show because it's more of an interview show. I keep an eye on it out of the corner of my eye, and like, call your show 10,000 dicks. So half the people are trolling,
Yeah.
half the people are. Most of the time they're just doing comedy in the chat, but the super chat shows like Kevin Brennan, he gets like 200 people and they throw him like $2 to ask a
Yeah, the
question or yeah.
donations and things.
Yeah, so it's like a whole thing and they want to get their thing read and it gives them a rush when their comments on the screen and stuff. So it's like a whole thing and there's a whole bunch of people doing it like Chad Zumach, Gino Bisconte, um,
Yeah.
Ray
Yeah, I know.
DeVito.
I've been on that show before. I've been on with Chad and a guy Adam who produced the Chip Chipperson show. But yeah, I've been on Kevin
Yeah, yeah,
Brennan's, and I know that circle, and I have nothing but like love and respect for them. But I feel like there's too much like drama and infighting within them. So I feel like if I can try to insert myself in there, it would just be that, and I don't want to kind of get caught up in that.
maybe if you wanted to get pull from that audience, yeah. But if you tried to just do your own thing, like I know another guy you probably know is Dalton, right?
Yeah.
Dalton Pruitt. So he's starting to get his feet back under him doing YouTube stuff. He took a little break for a while.
Yeah, no. Again, that's another one when before he was going through his issues, you could see rumblings of like the loud boys, them just having, and I was like, I messaged all of them like, hey, I could talk to you, like I can help you out of this situation. And then Dalton going through his mental breakdown, I was messaging like, yo, call me. I can, because if there's anyone who knows how to get someone out of a psychotic episode, it's me because I'd been in mental institutions. I even 10 years later worked in mental hospitals and hospice centers. And I had my own psychology firm, not psychology firm, but like just auditing for psychologists and talk to people. And obviously, I've just been around like homeless, crazy people because I'm like living next to them in a motel, just giving them advice and having these life conversations. So I can speak to people that are during that episode and at least talk them down to where they're not manic anymore. But it's like, that was probably seen as like cringe or whatever to just try to make sure Dalton didn't harm himself, you know?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's good. It's true, and like you do have a lot to say, and you do have a lot of advice to give. So it's just a niche thing. Like, of course, it might not be popular off the bat, but if you did something live,
Yeah,
that I think live is the new thing, basically.
this is extremely helpful to me because I realize like what's stopping me is from like if I just went to be an internet character, I could pull that off amazingly. Then if I went to do I forget what else I said. That interacting with chats thing, I could be like doubly successful. It's just my belief of authenticity and like my trauma of being misunderstood is holding me back. So if I heal my trauma and don't give a fuck if people see me as an internet character and then I build an audience and then I like give in to that sort of interacting with this I think they call it parasocial where it's like
It
if
is.
we talk about other comics podcasts and they talk about us and then everything kind of gets along and then fans become fans of that like that sort of thing like if I just let myself be that instead of believing in this sort of authenticity almost like I'm holding myself back and again I still don't know what I'm going to do with my future but this like you did like if you notice like I've been taking notes about kind of things that we've been talking about of like ideas of like oh that's why I haven't done this or that's why I'm hesitant to do like live shows and things like that or like internet things so like
Yeah,
yeah it was really helpful.
yeah. No, it's an interesting thing, and I think the live is the way to go. Depending on, of course, what it is. Like your produced documentary is amazing. Your rap is
Well, what does
great.
Dalton do because I watched some of his show I tried to check it out but I don't get it's just called like corn fed or something like what does he do?
To be honest, I don't watch it that often, but I know he started doing one with Crack Amico and the other dude too. So I don't know if it's quote unquote a podcast or he's going live. I think he's doing a couple different things, but uh,
Well, you hear it here first. Crack Amico's a bitch because he poses this image of this guy, and then they have a staged fight where whatever. I asked to be in the fight, and then they're like, no, you can't because it's this X, Y, and Z. And then towards that, I just wanted to meet this kid who has talked shit about me. And he said he refused to go out on the stage. If like it was, they did like a little event in Jersey, so I was 20 minutes. So I pulled up and I just like wanted to see him. And then like he said he went to like whatever green room and said, I refuse to go out until Mark Random's removed. So it's like he can talk all this shit on the internet about me, but then like I wasn't gonna harm him, I wasn't gonna do anything. And then he's doing a thing where they're trying to present him as this tough guy, and then he bitches out of a conversation with me. It's like fuck this guy. But it's like it just, and then Lewis gets mad at me of like, you would have been an interrupting. We did, and there was like 6 people. They were trying to build an audience, but they know what it was. So it's like that's what I'm talking about. I fucking hate fake shit like that.
Yeah, yeah. And
Like
then
I'm
well,
sorry because I know you're probably a fan of him, and that's cool.
eh,
Whatever he does, he does. But I'm just saying, like me personally, I fucking like don't talk shit about me. Then they build you up as some tough guy. Then when you really need to be a tough guy, because if you say some wild shit in front of me, it might not go to a peaceful conversation because I'm a real person, and people know that. They don't think that, but there's been videos on the internet about that. So it's like be a man and stand by your word, or be like you, or just be an internet troll, but don't per se portray yourself as some tough person.
yeah, he was supposed to come on at one point, and then we had Dylan on before the fight, and I guess Dylan. I don't know if you saw that, but he boxed Dylan.
No, that's what I'm saying. And
Yeah,
didn't he lose?
yeah, I think he lost. From
But
what I
that's what
could
I'm
tell.
saying. That's what I'm like. Okay, we're gonna promote this troll as like a tough guy, and then it's like it just, I don't know. I just fucking hate that all of that fake shit. No, it's not even that. I don't mind fake shit. I literally don't. Be gimmicks, be characters, be trolls, whatever the fuck you want to be. But then when I'm real about it, don't call me a fake gimmick and then be mad at me. Like that's the most angering thing, is that they're like, Mark Random isn't a tough guy. Like Mark Random's a weak bitch. And it's like, I was the one who drove there and wanted to talk to you in person. You were the one who stayed in the fucking dressing room and wouldn't even come out to the ring, which there were 10 people there. There was like Louis J. Gomez, and so obviously there was no way I could get to him. But it's like you're the one who was fucking scared and wouldn't come out until, and now you're promoting yourself as some tough guy. Like fuck you. And I'm sorry. That was just
No, no,
there.
that's cool.
There was the random. There it was, right there.
Are you and Rattlesnake on the outs now?
Uh, no, not at all. I'm just saying personally. Oh, that's what I was saying. Is it's like I don't mind this fake gimmicky shit. I just mind when it affects me. Like
Right.
again, everyone knows I have a beef with Zach and me, or he has a beef with me. I have no issue with that. But what happens with the fans is Zach, obviously, like I'm not saying this to disparage him. Everyone knows this. He's very theatrical. He does WWE wrestling. He puts face paint on. He like goes all out with, like, he's a very aesthetic person with horror movie themes. Like, have you seen him like dress up where he has his hair like this, like 10
Yeah.
different colors and things like that? Right. So that's cool and everything. Like, good, do what you want. Like, has Satanism logos all over himself and like whatever he does, like things like that. That's cool. I have no problem. I can communicate with a person like that. Oh, that's cool. That's what your thing is. But then, but I'm a real person. Like, that's just what I am. Like, I try to be authentic as possible. But then when he has tens of thousands of fans saying that that's real and authentic, but I'm the fake gimmick, that's where it becomes a problem, because it's like I've approached Zach a few times to try to talk out our issues. I've DM'd him like, hey, dude, let's try to work this out. So for you get what I'm saying? Like, that's why
Yeah.
I'm away from that whole thing, because they believe in like fake bullshit as real. And that's okay. They can believe fake bullshit is real. But for them to like, it was such a mind fuck for them. They call me a try hard edge lord gimmick, but it's like, and this is not to disparage Zach, he shows you like he would be the try hard gimmick. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he did a documentary and my documentary got way more views than his, and he's pushed by a bunch of networks. I'm blacklisted by a bunch of networks, but he would be self-admittedly a gimmick. Like, he's not really that crazy Jersey Devil. But then all the fans call him authentic and real, but then they look at me as some like fake gimmicky thing when I've been authentic and real. I've tried to hash out whatever Zach's fucking issue with me is several times in person. He's not approached me. I've approached him. You get what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah.
you're not the Jersey Devil if you fucking scared to sit next to someone who had an unfortunate life where people have called me the Jersey Devil a decent amount of times, but that unmedicated schizophrenia, homeless, did some wild shit. I feel bad about it, but it is what it is. So you go like it just that was just the mind fuck to me. I don't
Yeah.
mind if people are fake. I don't mind if people hate me, but then when they say that I'm fake and that the fake thing is real, that's what like that's just the issue, right? That's just you know what I mean?
No, no doubt. No doubt.
I'm sorry. I feel like we were in a good momentum, and then like my, that's literally like
No, this is what I want to
random. That
talk
was
about. I want you to go. When you go, you go. And
no, but I was
going
being
off.
very deep and philosophical, like for a good hour and 10, and then I just got like the resentment came out. Like we were talking about like Christ consciousness and everything, and then I guess the opposite of that just came out in the last 5 minutes, and I feel bad about that.
It's funny because I kind of led
With the
into it
crack and
talking.
Mika,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So
I
did you
led
want
into it
that to
talking about.
happen?
No, no, but I was talking about these drama casts. And then, of course, somehow it just subconsciously went to drama because I
Because
brought
it's
up
like your
someone.
ego, you're letting yourself big yourself up as this person. It's like, no, you have a fucking network behind you. Like that's why you think you're this tough guy because you have 10 people around you saying you're tough. I'm by my fucking self. You know what I mean? But I'll
Yeah.
still stand tall on like any kind of joke that I've told, any kind of offensive thing. And again, I wanted to talk it out peacefully. Everything because I guess they come from the comedy world. So their damage is if people say shit things to them, all they do is say shittier things. In the rap world, you get killed for that. So there has to be a level of like, let's peacefully resolve this because your people will kill my people or my people will kill your people. Like, you get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's like coming from two different worlds. And like, just because I grew up in the suburbs, lower middle class, and then I ended up through all that shit living with people in Jersey City, which is just like hell on earth. It's like the New Jersey version of Detroit. So like if you can't conflict peaceful resolution, people get stabbed, people get killed. So that's the world I come from. So you get what I'm saying? So it's like I don't know. I'm just saying, like,
Well,
that's why I'm all about like peaceful talking things out. Whereas, like, they don't come from that world. They don't have those kinds of consequences in their mind. So they're more likely to talk shit and things all right, a perfect example is let's say Stanhope had been someone else. He doesn't know that there's people in my camp that do fucked up shit like that. You get what I'm saying?
right,
Like
right.
the alleged burning his house down. Like he doesn't know, like, that's the people I roll with. So, you know.
Exactly, exactly. And I think you touched on this in the doc, but yeah, like maybe I heard it somewhere else, but like yeah, a lot of these stand-up people are like upper class, like from like wealthy families and
And
all
that's
this
okay. I have no problem. And if they
exactly.
want to be fake, I literally had no problem with Crack Amico pretending to be some tough guy that he's not. He's a weak bitch. And I have literally no problem with that. But like I have no problem with him hating me and dissing me. But then it's like when you start blocking spots from me and then calling me the fake gimmick, then I have a problem. And I don't even want the problem. I just like again, I went there to talk to him and be like, hey man, why are you saying this thing? Like, I'm happy for him and all his success. He just kind of got pulled out of nowhere. You get what I'm saying? Like, so I'm happy for him in this, but like just wanted to like make sure we're cool and hash it out like men, but they act like bitches and it just you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because, like,
yeah.
all right, let's say they thought I was going to hurt him, right? Let's say they thought I was going to do something fucked up. Then doesn't that make me the real tough guy? Because that wouldn't be a staged fight. You get what I'm saying? They're
Yeah.
doing a staged fight. I would like if I was going to do something tough or something street, then I would be the real tough guy in that. But I'm not. You know what I mean? I'm not some tough street hard guy or whatever. I'm somewhat like again, I'm soft and sensitive. So it's like I would want to talk that out peacefully.
Yeah, that I didn't even know the backstory of that, but that's crazy. But I mean, you filled me in on that. So who are some of the other guys that you're really respect or admire that you've
I
come
feel like
across?
this was like you got an hour of Mark and then an hour of random because that's where the name random came from, is just everyone calling me this nameless crazy. They would make up stories about me because I was like homeless and I would live at a motel. They would say like, oh, he sleeps in the woods and eats animals. Like it was kind of a joke for them to just almost like mythologically turn me into this thing. So
I
and
got a question.
I rejected it the whole time. I was like, no, I'm not. My name is Mark Rodon, which actually means red-haired wanderer. So it's interesting that that's what I became in my life. But it's like they would just keep calling me random. So that's like taking a negative and switching to a positive as my stage name. And they think I just chose that as like fucking cheap gimmick or whatever. And again, there's another thing. No offense to Zach Amico, but if there was going to be a real Jersey Devil, I think I fit that box with all the fucked up things that have happened to me. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, no doubt, for sure.
Like, I'll say it 100 times. I have no problem with fake shit. I have no problem with fake shit hating me. It's when it twists into this Mark Random is the fake thing and they're the real thing. And that costs me spots and opportunities in comedies. That's when it becomes a problem.
No doubt. So what? And I think part of it is the red hair, but that's funny. I just pointed up to my head, and then you said like, "Oh yeah, my last name means red hair, wanderer."
Yeah.
So that's something you've been rocking for a while, and I really do think that.
Well, there's always stories behind everything I do. Like this logo isn't just, oh, let me make some weird logo. It's because like I would draw that symbol when I was a kid, and then I learned into Kabbalah and meant the cursed ones. And I always had this belief, like again, mental illness, thinking I was the savior. Well, I'll make a cure. And then I was writing out these whole things in mental institutions. Then I realized that was crazy, and I'm really embarrassed about that. So I was like, all right, let me rock that as my logo. And then, taking the name random, and even the red hair was because when I was homeless, I had the thing of like, oh, like what we would do is the people that worked there, it was like a CVS or something. They would turn the security cameras off, and I would go and I would steal a bunch of shit from there. And I would just leave a bag for them of what they wanted stole. But I just was stealing like toiletries, like toothbrushes and soap and things like that, and towels and things and stuff like that. And a thing of red hair accidentally got into my thing. So that's where the red hair came from. I'm
It's
not
meant
just
to
like,
be.
oh, let me be weird and put red hair on, which I'm okay with people. Like, if there's a version of me that just puts the symbol on, calls himself random because he wants to be kooky and red hair, that's cool. But if that person, he can even say he's real, that's okay. But then when that person starts blocking spots for me and his audience start thinking I'm fake, that's when it becomes a problem. Sorry,
Yeah.
you triggered that thing that I literally said, like my resentment and my being misunderstood. And now I've just been fucking this whole thing up for the last 30, 40 minutes, 30 and a half,
No, it's all
30 and a
good.
half.
You think that Bill Maher dude stole your gimmick by calling his podcast Club Random? You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So of those guys, I've always thought you were like tight with Rattlesnake, but like, what about Big J and like any of those other guys you hang out with?
I have literally no issue with everyone. I love everyone. It's just, again, they perceive me as some gimmick that I'm not. So it's like, I try to get them to see, like, hey, here's my comedy, here's my music, but they're just never going to see me as that. So I want to find an environment. Like me and Lewis had a conversation about that because I said I wasn't going to be a part of Gas Digital for this year, and we talked it out and everything. But me and him are still cool. Like if I see him, I'll say what's up to him and fist bump and be like, "Oh, how you doing? Like happy for your tour and everything." And he'll ask me because that's just the person he is. That's the one thing about Lewis, that he's more like me in that most
He's
comics
a
want
G.
everyone to fail. But what?
He's a G. You know, he's a real dude.
But that's what I'm saying, is he wants others to succeed, and personal issues aside, he doesn't wish bad on anyone.
Right.
Like, because again, like you said, the comics who come from that other kind of lifestyle, they can be shitty and hate other people because for whatever reason they just have that disrespect. But he comes from a really fucked up background, so he has that, like, wants everyone to do well and wants everyone to be good, like, and just still like has no problem. Like, just like me, if Zach ever came to me and was like, yo, I'm sorry, I was tripping, what's up, you want to hang out, I'd be like, sure, no problem. Like, if you want something to eat, I'll pay for it. Like, that's the type of person that's literally the type of person I am.
Yeah.
it is so weird in that comedy circle for them. So that's why I'm just trying to find something else. Because again, like Big J. Okerson, Dave Smith, and Louis J. Gomez have commented on my comedy or whatever for years, but they've never seen me live. They've never seen me do comedy live. They've only seen clips or talked about me on their show as some weird character.
No, no, I get it. And yeah, I think, oh God, I mean, like, Lewis has done a pretty good job of cultivating like some of these, finding these guys like you and Dalton and
Yeah.
I don't know, a lot of the retread comics that he has on there. I'm not a big fan of, but like these unique guys who are like, you know,
Well, that's what I'm saying is I don't even think I'm that unique. Just let me do comedy. Like don't put me
real
on
guys.
don't put me on as like a shock guest. Like what we're going to do is we're going to not tell Karen Feehan he's on and then we're going to fuck with him before the show and then he's going to go on, he's going to ramble and she's going to be uncomfortable and that's the bit. The bit is Mark Random is fucking crazy cuz the episode I got put with Danny Polshak and Ryan Long and I did incredible. I was
That
making
was
them
great.
laugh the whole hour. Just every other second was a punchline because those were legitimate comics. So it's
Right.
like if he puts me on with legitimate comics, I can do well. Just Lewis always kind of like the first, let's put Shane Gillis next to him and not tell him what the show is. And then you get what I'm saying? Like they never promoted me as a legitimate comic. So you
Right.
get what I'm
Right.
saying? Like they just were only going to put me on as the Freak Show comic or the Freak Show Whack Pack. And like again, I'm not trying to say anything negative towards you, but that's what you just said. You said like Lewis always picks these weird kind of characters, which he does, but it's like just put me on as a real comic. Just like treat me like I'm normal and I just start laughing. Don't like I don't know.
Well, I
You
mean,
get what I mean? Like
he probably gave you a shot, you know, when you were eearly on in comedy
no,
because
the
of your
first
character.
shot was like with the Legion of Skanks, which that turned into something
Oh,
else. But then no, that was actually Big J, which that turned into whatever. But then the first shot was like the Randoms World, so it was like a gimmick. Like it was like he set up that sort of gimmick. Like he didn't put me on with like I don't know. I don't want to sound ungrateful because I learned a lot. He did give me an opportunity. I was able to understand more of the industry and I love him and if he ever needed a favor I would be there, but I just there again I really sounded like I was shit talking them and I didn't want to do
no.
that. I'm not shit like
No,
I'm just all
you're
right, I'm explaining just the misunderstandings that occurred in the years at Gas Digital is that they never either wanted to or they never did see me as a legitimate comic. They only wanted to portray me as this gimmicky, weird, crazy character and I was just trying to get them to see me as authentic. But because they come from that WWE weird gimmicky background, it was like a mirror clashing of their WWE fake gimmickies, and I'm just being real and authentic. And then that clashes, so they say I'm the weird gimmick and that they're the real ones. And that's okay with everything. It's just I could never get them to see me legitimately as a comic but you know what I mean? Like they've commented
yeah.
on my stand up for 5 years and they've never seen me do stand up.
So
I
I
bet
think
you
in
that
retrospect, like you were
I wish
grateful
I had
for the
understood.
exposure,
Yes,
but at the same time, you don't
it just
necessarily
what
like the what was the cultivated impression that was created by them and you and all of it. Because now you're kind of pigeonholed, maybe to some extent,
yeah,
as
well, look how
some.
they're doing Crack Amico. They're putting him on, but they're giving him legitimate respect and they're treating him as the others. And then they're turning him on all the podcast circuits and then they're bringing him on live. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like if you wanted me as a gimmicky character, then do that. Give me that treatment. Don't just sequester me in this fucked up thing of we're going to use you as this freak show. It's like, no, put me on the podcast circuits, put me on things live, and then my talent can shine. But they never did and they never will. So, you know,
No, no doubt. And that I bet, like, I don't know, like, could you put your flow up against Crack? Because Crack, he's got some good music, but I think you might have.
I don't, it's my only thing is just he's not a rapper. Just, he just did that contest and it like, until he does shows in fucking Vegas, Detroit, Chicago. I mean, he's did the fucking Skankfest Vegas. Until he's been in an unknown crowd of like 50 hood dudes and had to flip that crowd because they're looking at you like, what the fuck is this? And then you rock the stage for 20 minutes. If once you do that for 10 years, then I would consider him a rapper. Or like 5 years, 3 years, do that for 3 years. But all he does is perform in front of people who already like him, who already are in on the joke, who already, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
who
Yeah. Yeah.
they're not going to hate him even if he sucks on stage because it's all a part of their community that they've already accepted. Like, so I don't like he's a gimmicky fucking character of Gas Digital. He's not a rapper, and he never will be unless he fucking, well, no, because that's all he's going to do. Like I said, like, that was my experience. I've done rap shows where they didn't know my name and I had to build my fan base up. And like with other rappers, like the tour bus got, not tour bus, it was a van, got shot at some point. So when he's making gimmicky songs but is afraid to talk to me person to person, and I've really lived that rap life with the broke rappers, not the successful rappers, with the broke street gang rappers, it's like we're two different genres. He's like pop comic gimmicky, and I'm just underground rap.
Right. Right. And maybe like to some extent, like what his arc of what he is now, he might be getting
Could we switch
pigeonholed.
something else? I don't
Yeah.
fucking.
Yeah. Let's
I
get
like.
off of him.
I'm sorry, and I wish
Let,
I had said that further. And I don't want to disrespect you, but it's
Cause
just
he's
it says
dope. He has some good music, but it's very uh niche to like Gas Digital centered comedy, and
well.
I like him.
That's what it
So
is. No,
that's the thing.
you can like him. I just it just there was a misunderstanding. Like there's no jealousy and hate.
Right.
I'm happy that some kid out of nowhere just got this shot and everyone said to like him, so they did, and they put him on the circuit. Like I'm not resentful of that. I just like no, I apologize. I am resentful that it just like the misunderstanding. Like Crack Amico could talk all this shit he wants about me. Cool. But then when like and he can get the circuit run that I never got. That's cool. But then when their shit talking affects my career and then I try to talk it out like a real person and you're being fake and then everyone calls me the fake person, that's when there's a problem. Like anytime it affects my career, that's when there's a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's
Let's
why I'm
let's
just moving away from the whole thing.
let's not look backwards anymore. Let's look forward. So we talked about maybe getting into streaming your music. We talked about in the future. You got any
Yeah.
like macro predictions or forecasting of what we might see over the next couple years here,
In the
like
world?
in the world, in your
Yeah, well,
personal
this is
life,
the
anything?
interesting thing is the interesting thing about the climate, the culture climate is it's almost like you remember how 2016 was such a crazy year because it was election year. You remember Hillary
Yep.
Clinton and Donald Trump, and it was just these things, and like there was just these breakout news stories. I almost felt like 2024 was supposed to be like that, but I'm like January it started off the fucking aliens, the juice sewers, and there was a third thing, but it feels like it's just not being that thing. But who knows, maybe it'll just pop off like something crazy or whatever. Like even in 2020 election year, you had the George Floyd situation, you had the Kyle Rittenhouse, you had these protesters, you had these like riots and things like
You had
that. Then you
Rona,
had like,
Corona.
yeah, then the MAGA thing, like that was a crazy election year. So I always felt like 2024 was going to be the big huge thing.
Yeah,
But
me too.
like, I mean again, it's still young, we're still in the first quarter. But I don't know that my prediction would, the prediction that I'm saying is 2024 is going to be so crazy. It's going to make 2016 feel like the year 2000. But I don't know, like it feels like that prediction's fizzling out. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of subscribe to that theory of election years, and like I see Bitcoin is rallying hard right now, but I think that's just because there's, I don't know, every election year it does, but it also coincides with something called a halvening.
Yeah,
There's a whole bunch of
Bitcoin.
stuff with that Bitcoin and like money, but also they just passed an ETF and there's $500 million bids every day on it. So
What's that?
so basically now like certified financial advisors can now buy Bitcoin for their clients. So um, there's just constant
Oh,
buy
yeah.
pressure
Oh,
on it. a lot of people are allocating like financial advisors are calling their clients and saying like, hey, you want to allocate 1 to 2% to this, and everyone's like, yeah, sure, why not? So there's just a big bid on it, but I don't know. That's usually when that gets really volatile. That means to me, that means other stuff gets volatile. But then it's one of those things. It's like,
Well,
well, that's
anytime
also
money in general, because that's the top tier. Like
right.
people would think like government or media, but money is the thing that goes above that. Like the corporations exist for money. So like when they start doing Bitcoin and they start like watering down the dollar and then they start putting things in other countries like donating to Israel and donating to Ukraine, that's when it's starting to it's a trickle down, like that trickles down and fucks everything. So that's a scary thing. It's like everyone keeps saying the collapse of America. They're like, what's it? Late stage capitalism, the fall of an American empire. And it's like, why would you try to put that? It very clearly looks like that, but it's like, why would you try to put that energy out there without some kind of solution? And unfortunately, that was the only person that said that was fucking Putin. Did you watch the Tucker Carlson and Putin interview?
I didn't. I've been
Oh, it
so
was
out of the news, but yeah.
yeah, that I get it. It was really good because I thought Tucker Carlson was going to come with the same like conservative Republican shit, but he actually gave some hard pushback questions, I guess. But what Putin said, and this is so fucked up because Putin is an enemy of the United States. Putin wants the United States to collapse and be destroyed. No one can dispute that. Anyone who does is fucking stupid to think that Putin would be on our side just because he aligns with a lot of conservative values, which conservatives like. He is an enemy of the United States, but he was describing the collapse of the United States, saying it doesn't have to all be bad if you just keep the old system. If you transform to something new, you might be okay. People are resilient. People figure out new ways to do things. So it could not be a bad thing. And that Putin's the only fucking person who said that. Not left-wing politics, not right-wing politics. Left-wing politics want to destroy it all. Right-wing politics want to keep it the way it is, but it's like the way it is never was because it's crashing down. No one's coming up with like a new. I mean, some people here and there are like, okay, we're going to do Bitcoin so the dollar doesn't collapse and Bitcoin will maintain its value. Or okay, the internet, where are we going to do with jobs because robots are making people obsolete? You get what I'm saying? Like,
Well, that's the thing with Putin. Like 12 years ago, 13 years ago, he had a really interesting take on the United States economy, or maybe it was even like 16, 18 years ago. But he said basically the United States economy is based on people buying and selling houses to each other. And there's a
yeah,
lot of truth to that, especially over the last 10 years with foreign investment into people buying houses. But yeah, it's a lot of the production of business, of manufacturing and natural resources is down in the United States, whereas Russia, it's up, and currency control and all that type of stuff for um, Finex and global or Forex, all that stuff is like he knows what he's doing with that, and so does China, and it's like one of these things.
exactly. At
Yeah,
the end of the day, I'm the one who believes, and this could be conspiracy. I could be wrong, or maybe I could be put in a camp for this. But at the end of the day, I believe it's they. Sorry, they. I believe they made all their money from the US that they needed. They got all the technological innovations. They got a stronghold army so they can take out what they need and then they can escape the US and leave it sinking with the immigrants coming in, with left-wing politics destroying itself, and every kid is transgender and poison in the food, and every conservative stupid and doesn't do anything, and the US collapses and it becomes totalitarian because they.
sure, and
Do you know
that's
what they is?
a lot of people. Yeah, so like I know like a lot of people look at 2030 as a date for that. Some people have been prophesizing or figuring this stuff out. Like and there's a whole Agenda 2030 thing that like Bill Gates is big into. But yeah, I think there's like certain dates and times and stuff for some of this stuff to transpire. But yeah,
Because
maybe. But I don't see
exposes
anything.
people.
I don't really see anything happen. Like to your point, I don't really see anything happening in 2024 like I thought it would.
All right, like, well, this is an interesting occurrence. Is like how much like I feel bad because in my comedy special that I already recorded last year, I used the word Jews a lot. And I
Yeah.
realized what I'm talking about is Zionism, Zionist.
Right, right,
Like
right.
the Zionists are the ones that believe they should inherit the earth and everyone is inferior to them. And I wish I could tweak that somehow. Like I wish I didn't say Jews because like when I see like the rabbis or whatever, I'm not talking about them. I don't want them being harmed. You know what I mean? I don't want any bad on their family, but the ones in power, the Zionists that are trying to use the United States to help out Israel at the sinking of America, those are the ones that I'm talking about in my comedy special.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like we'll see kind of a lot of this like geopolitical and stuff that's happening over in Ukraine, and then
Because it's coming to a head. That's the thing. Is it's
yeah,
like
right.
it
So
was slowly going with Iraq and then Syria moving in with the Obama administration. And then like I don't know, maybe it's just propaganda, but with Trump, it didn't feel like there was any global war going on. He was talking to North Korea, but now it's like there's like China and Russia. I think they keep saying they are making an allegiance or that's just propaganda, but it feels like China and Russia are making this thing and it just I don't know. Nations always fall. It just I don't know. I wish I could fucking save the world. I wish I had the power to save the world.
don't we all, bro? I think with that we'll call it a night because I got to take another piss, man. But dude, it was an honor having you on, man. I'm glad you're back in the fold, back in the internet. Appreciate you coming on our show. Or Mir wasn't even here. He was here earlier for a second, but um,
I apologize. It didn't seem like it was funny. I feel like it was interesting for the first hour and 10 and then like or no, like hour 20. I really just hate the 20 to 25-minute rant I did about like Gas Digital and Krakamiko and Zach and things like that. Like I really wish that didn't occur.
No, dude, I thought it was great because people like hearing about stuff they know about, and I think we did a good job covering you. I'm not funny at all, so we don't try to be funny. Some people find it funny. A lot of people hate us, so they just troll us
Yeah.
or whatever. But I think we covered a lot of good stuff and gave you a good introduction um to the people, and we'll do it again sometime, man. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll get like a little round table of people on here, and we can maybe have a
That's when
theme
I'm
or
usually a
something.
lot funnier, like
Yeah.
when there's a lot of people.
But I appreciate it, man. And
Thank you so much. I guess I'm happy. Like again, if like despite me focusing on the negative of that whole like Krakamiko Zakamiko thing was upsetting, is I did learn psychological issues that I have that are preventing my career, and now I'm going to try to figure out how to fix those psychological issues, and then maybe my career can move forward.
dude, you can do anything, man. Just
Yeah.
yeah, so keep doing what you're doing, man. You're a true artist. I love your philosophy that you've done, and like I said, go check out his documentary. I don't know if you want to promote anything else. Check out his rap, check out his YouTube page, check out his Twitter. I don't know if you want to give those for us right now.
Mark Random X, Instagram, Twitter. On Facebook, there's an account that I just friend people and I'll talk to them here and there. And then just YouTube or markrandom.com that has music, comedy bits, philosophies, and documentary, and then the docu-series and things like that. And just I'll just randomly post songs or verses or comedy bits just at all of those places.
Awesome, dude. Appreciate it once again. And till next time, you guys,
All right. Thank you
have a
very
good one.
much.
Peace.